Chapter 65. From the Whispers, He found out that the gray-robed old man and the black-clothed young man were from the Black Fiend sect. Black Fiend sect. That made Su Yi's heart tremble. After being in the barbaric demon forest for 3 years, how could Su Yi not know about the 3 strongest powers in the barbaric demon forest? Within the 3 powers, there was the Black Fiend sect. The Black Fiend sect, the Wild Dragon Mercenary Alliance, and the Blood God sect. The 3 powers in the barbaric demon forest controlled the entire barbaric demon forest. Although the barbaric demon forest was remote, savage beasts roamed freely, and it was rumored that there were powerful demon clan experts. But it was also because of that the barbaric demon forest was vast and abundant in resources. It was rich in all sorts of medicinal herbs, refining materials, and various resources from savage beasts. Those were all things that cultivators could not lack. Where there was a market, there would be benefits. Where there were benefits, there would be conflicts and disputes. Although the barbaric demon forest was remote and filled with danger, it also made the barbaric demon forest become an independent world. For a long time, in the chaotic disputes of benefits, some powers in the barbaric demon forest vanished like smoke in thin air, and some powers took the chance to rise. Up until now, the 3 strongest powers in the barbaric demon forest controlled most of the benefits in the entire barbaric demon forest. The other mercenary groups and small and medium-sized powers were all inextricably linked to those 3 powers. Other than savage beasts, medicinal herbs, refining materials, etc., the barbaric demon forest also had a type of material that no warrior could lack, and that was origin stones. Within the general public, there were gold and silver materials used as currency. But among cultivators, alchemists, refiners, and soul controllers, the currency was not gold and silver, but origin stones. Origin stones were a gift from heaven and earth to cultivators. There were different types of attributes, and they were condensed and formed in heaven and earth. They contained the energy of heaven and earth and could increase a cultivator's cultivation speed. When a cultivator absorbed the energy within origin stones, it was enough to be much faster than normal cultivation. One could imagine how important origin stones were to cultivators. But origin stones were not everywhere. It could be said to be one of the most expensive things in the world. Within the barbaric demon forest, there were coincidentally some origin stone mines. And the people on the flying savage beast mounts were people that the Black Fiend sect paid a large price to come to the mines to mine for the Black Fiend sect. Mining for origin stones was an extremely dangerous job, and ordinary people could not do it. Stop chattering and shut up. The whispers in the surroundings attracted the attention of the Black Fiend sect's disciples on the flying savage beast. They immediately turned their heads and swept their sharp gazes over the few people who were whispering. Immediately, fear appeared in their eyes. They lowered their heads and no longer dared to speak. The Black Fiend sect was known for its ruthlessness and ruthlessness. Otherwise, how could it become one of the 3 great powers in the barbaric demon forest? Within the entire barbaric demon forest, how many people dared to provoke the Black Fiend sect? Su Yi was restricted, and his mind was constantly thinking about how to escape. Update $SD on our fastest Y. Circulate your energy to dissolve the seal. Even though he was unable to circulate his origin energy, Su Yi did not give up. He tried in secret. After all, he could not possibly become a fish on the chopping board. This restriction cannot stop the Origin Supreme technique. Suddenly, Su Yi was pleasantly surprised. As he circulated the Primordial Chaos Supreme technique, he discovered that the restriction couldn't stop him. After circulating the Primordial Chaos Supreme technique, the restricted origin energy in his body began to loosen a little. Then it slowly surged. Under the circulation of the Primordial Chaos Supreme technique, the origin energy began to flow towards the restricted meridians. It began to attempt to break through the restricted meridians. It works. Although it was just an attempt, Su Yi could clearly feel that although the speed of the origin energy breaking through the restriction was slow, as long as there was enough time, it would definitely be able to dissolve the restriction. No, I have to stabilize it first. This will only put me in a more dangerous situation. Suddenly, he stopped attacking the restriction. Right now, he was still under the black fiend Sek's nose, especially in front of the gray-robed old man. If he was discovered, he would be in an even more dangerous situation. He pondered. He would think of a way to escape after he stabilized. At the very least, he couldn't do it in front of an expert like the gray-robed old man. If there was anything strange, the gray-robed old man would quickly discover it. Several hours later, the sun was setting in the western sky above the mountain forest. In the distance, thick clouds and mist occupied the sky. The setting sun took advantage of the small gaps in the sky and shot out rays of crimson light. He lay on the back of a savage beast mount. His gaze passed through the mountain forest. At the intersection of the sky and water where the setting sun sank, many simple buildings appeared. From time to time, the roars of demonic beasts could be heard. "We've arrived." A black fiend Sek's disciple spoke and stood up on the back of a flying savage beast mount. At this moment, everyone on the savage beast mounts also stood up. Their eyes secretly moved. Some were expectant, some were worried, and all of them had complicated feelings. Awoo! One by one, the flying beasts landed in a flat valley. There were simple buildings in the surroundings. He was still sizing up the place when he was directly thrown down by a black fiend Sek's disciple. He fell heavily on the ground. Whoosh whoosh, the gray-robed skinny old man who was called Elder quietly appeared beside Su. Several rays of energy light lingered from his withered fingertips and landed on Su Yi's body. Su Yi's restricted meridians were immediately free of blockages. They were a little numb and painful, but gradually recovered. "Throw him into the mine for yuan stones. If he doesn't behave, just kill him," Elder indifferently said. He did not give Su Yi another glance and walked towards a comfortable campsite with the black-clothed youth who had landed not far away. The black-clothed youth turned his head and indifferently glanced at Su Yi. His eyes contained a cold smile, and he no longer cared. Su Yi stood up and looked at the black-clothed youth and the gray-robed old man. A trace of coldness was undetectable. "Brat, leave. It's best if you behave. Otherwise, you're just courting death." A black fiend Sek's disciple immediately stepped forward and kicked Su Yi's waist. The kick caused Su Yi to stagger forward a few steps. "Everyone, come over and start entering the mine." A black fiend Sek's disciple began to berate. Someone led the way and let the miners enter the mine. "It's already night. Are they going to mine through the night?" Some people did not understand. It was already sunset. Could it be that they were in such a hurry to mine the yuan stones? Less nonsense. "Hurry up." A black fiend Sek's disciple loudly berated. He coldly stared at the person who had spoken. A cold light filled the air, and that person was so frightened that he did not dare to speak anymore. The others originally had some opinions, but at this moment they were silent like cicadas in winter and did not dare to ask. Chapter 66. Look at the correct edition. Chapter Z, above both sides of the rugged mountain path, were filled with black fiend Sek's disciples. Under the black fiend Sek's disciples' orders, the group of 200 people walked for a while before reaching their destination. Su Yi saw a huge valley. The valley's surroundings were messy, and there were many caves. Beside each cave, there were black fiend Sek's disciples standing guard. Their auras were extraordinary, and any one of them had an extraordinary cultivation. Su Yi secretly sized up the place and memorized the terrain in his heart, making preparations for his escape. The valley was like a mine, but the surrounding heaven and earth energy was quite extraordinary. "Come and check." The 200 people were divided into groups and scattered around several cave entrances. The black fiend Sek's disciples came over for a strict check. No one was allowed to bring in a spatial bag or even any origin stones. The spatial bag had a separate space inside. If someone brought the spatial bag in to steal origin stones, it would be a huge loss. The Black Fiend sect would not make such a mistake. Moreover, the Black Fiend sect's inspection was not limited to this. Every cave entrance had a special inspection device that seemed to be able to check for other things. Su Yi stood in line and silently observed everything with a solemn expression. The Black Fiend sect's disciples at the surrounding cave entrances had stronger auras than those outside. They were probably the Black Fiend sect's elites. The origin stones produced by this mine were naturally an important industry for the Black Fiend sect. Su-Yi knew that with his cultivation, it would be a fool's dream if he wanted to escape from this place under normal circumstances. It was no wonder that the skinny old man from the Black Fiend sect was so assured to remove the restriction on his body. Open your arms and take out everything. In front of Su-Yi, a skinny old man was being inspected. I don't have anything on me. If I had the money to buy a spatial bag, would I still be able to help you mine origin stones? The skinny old man muttered. His clothes were extremely simple and plain. His forehead seemed to have turned a bit white. His head of withered black hair was like straw, tightly tied to his head. Su-Yi's gaze inadvertently landed on the old man's body. From the aura emitted from the old man's body, it seemed like his cultivation wasn't very high. At most, he was at the Yuan profound realm. Moreover, his cultivation level wasn't very high. Looking at the old man's age, he was probably in his 50s. Su-Yi inwardly sighed. Perhaps talent determined everything. It was not without reason. With such a low cultivation at such an age, he still had to rely on mining to obtain origin stones to cultivate. His life could be considered as a coward. Let's go. Follow closely behind me and mine for primeval stones. You have a mission every day. If you can't complete your mission or do something behind my back, you'll have to bear the consequences. The skinny old man seemed to have been inspected, and the Black Fiend sect disciples at the entrance of the cave let him in. Their tone carried a warning and reminder. Check. It was Su-Yi's turn. According to the Black Fiend sect's disciples' instructions, Su-Yi was checked and his body was searched. With Su-Yi's ragged appearance, the Black Fiend sect's disciple did not pay much attention to Su-Yi. After a simple inspection, Su-Yi was allowed to enter the cave. Following the person in front, Su-Yi carefully entered the cave. It was different from what he had imagined. The inside of the cave was extremely large. There were many tunnels crisscrossing each other, just like an underground maze. Moreover, the cave was extremely lively. There were many Black Fiend sect's disciples patrolling the area. There were also many miners pushing special carts. The carts were filled with rocks of different sizes. The largest was the size of a baby, while the smallest was the size of a fist. These rocks were of different colors, but they seemed to be very heavy. Two people pushing a cart, and both of them were martial artists with cultivation, seemed to be very strenuous. Hurry up with me. If you can't complete the mission today, there will be consequences for you. Inside the cave, a large man from the Black Fiend sect had a gloomy look in his eyes. The long whip in his hand ruthlessly lashed out at the large man pushing the cart. Pa! Under the lash of the whip, the large man staggered and fell to the ground. A bloody mark appeared on his back, but he immediately struggled up. His eyes were filled with dread and fear. He didn't even dare to utter a single sound. He immediately used all of his strength to push the cart away with his companions. As Su-Yi and the others saw this, many of their complexions changed. Were these people also here to mine for primordial stones like them? It seemed like they had suffered quite a bit. What are you looking at? Hurry up and get ready to mine. Looking at the gazes of Su-Yi and the others, the large man from the Black Fiend sect coldly glanced at Su-Yi and the others. He was well aware that these newcomers would be able to work at the beginning, but they wouldn't be able to last for long. Even so, this was enough for them to catch up with the latest progress. The thin old man lowered his head, as if he didn't care about the large man from the Black Fiend sect. Instead, he looked around with interest. There seems to be something special about this. At first, Su-Yi hadn't paid much attention to the old man, but this small, unintentional reaction had attracted Su-Yi's attention. Based on Su-Yi's experience and awareness, this thin old man seemed to be very abnormal. Everyone's complexions changed, and they all feared the Black Fiend sect disciples. But the old man's reaction seemed a bit off. Follow me. Don't look around. When the time comes, just do what you're supposed to do. Otherwise, you'll have to bear the consequences. The Black Fiend sect disciple continued to lead the way, warning Su-Yi and the others. The mine was very deep and crisscrossed. If no one led the way, Sue, you really would get lost. This is very abnormal. This must be a black mine. The deeper they went, the more people Sue encountered. The more he felt that something was wrong. Almost every one of the people who had been mining here was as thin as a match. Their spirits were also dispirited. It was as if they had been squeezed to the extreme. The others in Su Yi's group seemed to have noticed this as well. Their expressions grew even more serious as worry began to appear in their eyes. Everyone, why do I feel like something's not right? Is the Black Fiend sect trying to trick us? Unable to bear it any longer, some people began to whisper as a small disturbance began to rise. I told you to be quiet. Didn't you hear me? The Black Fiend sect disciple leading the way turned his head, his expression dark and cold as he stared at Su Yi's group. I want to leave now. I don't want to mine for the Black Fiend sect anymore. Please take me out. A large man opened his mouth, his eyes moving slightly. He was around 30 years old and had some shrewdness. He felt that something was wrong and wanted to leave. Upon hearing these words, the gazes of the surrounding group immediately turned to look at him. Many people's eyes moved, as if they all had the same thought. Along the way, and especially when they reached this cave, everything made them feel uneasy. Say that again. The Black Fiend sect disciple leading the group slowly stepped forward, stopping in front of the shrewd large man. His expression was indifferent as he asked in an indifferent voice. Chapter 67. Qi-La. Rays of light surged and Yuan Qi fluctuated. A cold light shot out from the hand of the Black Fiend sect's disciple leading the way. It was as fast as lightning and carried a fierce aura. A claw directly clasped onto the shrewd man's neck. This sudden change caused everyone's expression to change. The shrewd man was even more shocked, and his expression changed greatly. The opponent's cultivation and strength far exceeded his own. He didn't even have the strength to resist. You come and go as you please. What do you think my Black Fiend sect is? You're courting death. As the Black Fiend sect's disciple spoke these harsh and emotionless words, his 5 fingers tightened. Gotcha! The shrewd man's neck was directly broken. His body fell limply to the side and lost all signs of life. Dark red blood flowed out from the side of his protruding eyeballs. It was very frightening and caused people to palpitate for no reason. Everyone trembled and felt their hair stand on end. Is there anyone else who wants to leave? The Black Fiend sect's disciple who just attacked coldly swept his gaze over Su Yi's group. His killing intent was not concealed at all. Everyone's heart palpitated and they didn't dare to speak. Seeing everyone's reaction, the Black Fiend sect's disciples who led the way all revealed cold smiles. At this place, there was no need to be afraid of these people not being obedient. If anyone dared to disobey, just kill them. Killing the chicken to warn the monkey was the most effective method. He slightly lowered his head and narrowed his eyes, not leaving any traces. It seemed that this was indeed a black cave. These warriors wanted to obtain high-level cultivation, but in the end, they would most likely have to pay with their lives. In this world, the strong were respected and the weak were prey to the strong. Not to mention in this barbaric demon forest. Su Yi's gaze subconsciously landed on the skinny old man in front of him. Su Yi realized that the skinny old man had his head lowered and his expression was one of terror. It was as if he was shocked by the scene that had just happened. That's an actor. Su Yi was even more suspicious. This skinny old man's acting was definitely not bad. The more the skinny old man acted like this, the more it aroused Su Yi's curiosity. Under the guidance of the Black Fiend sect's disciples, Su Yi's group continued to go deeper into the mine. The space in front of them grew larger and larger, as if they were deep underground. Quite a few rock caves appeared in the surroundings. Along the way, there were constantly miners mining rocks under the shouts of the Black Fiend sect disciples. Half an hour later, Su Yi and the rest finally arrived at their destination. It was a huge cave that looked like a small valley. There were pearls glowing all around, illuminating the cave as if it was daytime. The entire cavern was in the middle of mining. Under the supervision of several Black Fiend School disciples, several dozen people were using special mining tools to excavate the rocks. This kind of rock seemed to be very hard and special. These miners were all warriors. Even when they used their yuan qi, it was still very strenuous for them to mine such rocks. When the Black Fiend sect's disciples who were monitoring the miners saw that the Black Fiend sect's disciples who were leading the way had brought quite a number of people over, their eyes lit up with joy. They all came forward to welcome them and whispered something to each other. "Everyone, get to work. Hurry up." Soon after, a Black Fiend sect disciple distributed tools for Su Yi's group to work, digging out the rocks in the cave. The group did not dare to disobey. Although they were unwilling, they did not dare to provoke these Black Fiend sect's disciples. Su Yi did not say anything. He received a special mining tool that looked like a hoe or a shovel. It was made of a special material and was very hard. According to the instructions, he began to mine the rocks in the cave. These rocks were even harder than Su Yi had imagined. No wonder these miners looked so tired and strenuous. "I'll leave them to you. Watch carefully and quickly dig to the bottom." The Black Fiend sect's disciples who were leading the way left, no longer paying attention to Su Yi's group. "Hurry up. Whoever dares to slack off, I'll take care of them." The Black Fiend sect's disciples held weapons in their hands. Their expressions were fierce and fiendish. Just in this cave alone, there were over 100 miners. However, in front of the Black Fiend sect disciples, they all kept quiet out of fear, not daring to resist. If they were too weak, they could only be trampled on. This kind of mining was truly tiring. Su Yi lowered his head to work, mining the strange rocks. After only 4 hours, he felt a little exhausted. Fortunately, the miners were not made of iron and needed to rest. After every 6 hours, the miners could rest for 2 hours. After all, the Black Fiend sect did not want these miners to die from exhaustion. During these 2 hours, the miners could use breathing exercises to recover. However, they absolutely could not leave the cave. "Let's go out and get some fresh air. Junior brother, watch over us." The Black Fiend sect's disciples ordered the youngest to watch over them. The others also took the opportunity to go out and get some fresh air. In this cave, they were truly suffocating. "All of you stay here obediently. Otherwise, you'll have a good time." After the Black Fiend sect's disciples left, the youngest Black Fiend sect's disciple secretly moved and took the opportunity to go out for a walk. He was also very sullen. In any case, it was impossible for these miners to escape. Our latest update, when the Black Fiend sect's disciples left, many of the miners let out a sigh of relief. "Everyone, how long have you been in here? What's going on here?" A new miner immediately asked the older miners. At first, the Black Fiend sect disciples were watching them, so they did not dare to ask. 3 months. This is a black mine. Once you've come, you can't leave. I've been here for 4 months, and I haven't even left the cave. The Black Fiend sect won't let us out," the older miners said as they looked at the newcomers. Their eyes were listless and helpless, as if they were already used to it. "We've all been deceived by the Black Fiend sect." A new miner's expression changed. At this time, the last trace of hope had been cut off. They had originally wanted the Black Fiend sect's high price of primal stones, but they had not expected that the Black Fiend sect wanted their lives. They wanted to squeeze them dry and had no intention of letting them leave. "There's so many people here. Did no one resist?" a new miner asked. Along the way, there were at least 1,000 miners in this cave, while the Black Fiend sect's disciples numbered at most 150. Did no one think of resisting? Could it be that they could only wait for death? Don't think too much. The Black Fiend sect has experts guarding this place. With everyone's strength and cultivation, it is impossible for them to be a match, a tired-looking man said. His listless eyes carried a glimmer of hope. "Actually, it's not that there is no chance at all. As long as you can dig out primal stones, you can receive a reward from the Black Fiend sect. You can even become a disciple of the Black Fiend sect. It is said that several people have really dug out primal stones and received a lot of rewards." What are primal stones? Chapter 68. As for these old miners, Su Yi couldn't help but sympathize with them. The Black Fiend sect's black kiln was completely oppressing everyone, but it also made them feel as if there was a last glimmer of hope, so that they wouldn't completely despair and collapse. It had to be said that the Black Fiend sect strategy was really good. It captured the weakness of human nature. Of course, Su didn't care about this. He was thinking about how to escape. This was definitely not a place to stay for long. Following Su Yi's question, many of the resting miners looked at Su Yi in surprise and curiosity, as if they were looking at a monster. There was someone who didn't even know about primal crystal stones. Primal stones are divided into various attributes and grades, but primal crystal stones are not the same. Primal crystal stones are a special kind of primal stone. They don't have any attributes and are the purest things. Therefore, after being refined by a powerhouse, they're usually used as testing stones. A piece of the most ordinary primal crystal stone is equivalent to a piece of primal stone at the edge of 3 stars. Someone opened his mouth and replied to Su Yi's question. Su Yi raised his eyes and followed the voice to see a skinny old man. It was the skinny old man that he had been paying attention to. This made Su Yi a little surprised. As for the primal crystal stone, Su Yi suddenly realized that the primal crystal stone was the primal crystal stone. Back in the barbarian city, the primal crystal stone that Wang Chuanda had brought seemed to have been swallowed and absorbed by the mysterious space in his mind. A piece of primal crystal stone was equivalent to a piece of 3 stars primal stone. This made Su Yi very moved. Su Yi naturally knew about the grades of primal stones. Generally speaking, primal stones were divided into 1 star to 7 stars. Now, the primal stones circulating among martial artists were almost all 1-star primal stones. Even 2-star primal stones were extremely rare, not to mention 3-star primal stones. The grades of primal stones were exchanged in a 100 system. A 2-star primal stone was equivalent to 101-star primal stones, and a 3-star primal stone was equivalent to 102-star primal stones, which was equivalent to 10,000 1-star primal stones. But under normal circumstances, no one would be willing to exchange a 3-star primal stone for 102-star primal stones, let alone 10,000 1-star primal stones. The higher the grade of the primeval stone, the purer the energy. Exchanging high-grade primeval stones for low-grade primeval stones was an invisible loss. These miners were willing to mine for 3 months in exchange for 3 origin stones. Of course, they were only 1-star origin stones. Moreover, it was a high price. It was enough to show how valuable origin stones were. Many thanks, Senior. For better or for worse, he had answered his question. Su Yi clasped hands and bowed to express his thanks. Kid, how did you offend the Black Fiend sect and end up being captured here? The skinny old man looked indifferently at Su Yi. Back then, he had personally witnessed Su Yi being captured by the Black Fiend sect. Hearing this, many of the miners around also looked at Su Yi curiously. They had been tricked into coming here, but this kid had been captured. However, everyone's gazes were only filled with curiosity, without any sympathy. It had nothing to do with them. They couldn't even take care of themselves now. So how could they have the time to care about the life and death of others? It can only be said that people are unlucky, and can only be said that they are too weak. Su Yi said indifferently. He didn't say much. It seemed like there was no need for him to complain to these miners. In this world where the strong preyed on the weak, no one would care about the so-called grievances. That was just a reflection of weakness. Besides, Su Yi wasn't that kind of person. If there was a chance, he would definitely settle this debt with the Black Fiend sect. Are there really origin stones here? How come I don't see any? A new miner asked an old miner. He hadn't seen any origin stones since he came in. Of course there are. The ones in front have all been dug out. The old miner who had said that he had been here for 4 months said, When I came in, I saw with my own eyes that there were origin stones everywhere. There were a lot of origin stones that had been mined out. 5 days ago, when everyone thought that the origin stones had been completely mined out, the inside of the mine suddenly collapsed. It was said that hundreds of people were buried alive. It was a tragic sight. He paused for a moment. The old miner still had some lingering fear. If he hadn't been outside at that time, he probably would have been killed. He then continued. Later, the people of the Black Fiend sect found that there should be another layer of origin stones in the mine. It is very likely that this is a mine within a mine. Mine within a mine? Then isn't the Black Fiend sect going to be rich? Hearing this, some people were immediately shocked. When these words were spoken, the skinny old man's eyes flickered without leaving a trace. Then, they returned to calmness. Then, from these people's whispers, he also learned what a mine within a mine was. As the name implied, a mine within a mine was a mine within a mine that hid another mine. And a mine within a mine was extremely rare. Generally speaking, the origin stones in a mine within a mine would have a lower quality on the surface, but the quality inside would be better. The Black Fiend sect's origin stone mine produced 1-star origin stones. But now that a mine within a mine had been discovered, it was very likely that there would be 2-star origin stones inside. If they could find a 2-star origin stone mine, then it would be of great significance to the Black Fiend sect. It might not be a mine within a mine. Even if it is a mine within a mine, there might not be much of it, someone said. He didn't look young and seemed to have a lot of experience in origin stone mines. No, I feel that it should be a mine within a mine. Recently, the layer of rock inside has been getting harder and harder. Perhaps it won't be long before we can dig out a second layer of origin stones, another miner said. Fuck, look at section asterisk of chapter asterisk. What are you all chattering about? Do you want to die? If you have the energy to chat, then get up and get to work. Suddenly, the several Black Fiend sect disciples who had been keeping watch came back. Their faces were gloomy and their gazes were sharp. Is your new disciple itching for a beating? Get to work. A Black Fiend sect disciple kicked a new miner, sending his body flying. The new miner smashed into the rock wall and spat out blood. His aura immediately weakened and his face was deathly pale. He immediately struggled to get up, not daring to speak. The surrounding people were even more shocked and immediately got to work. You and you little brat are responsible for moving these rocks out. Also, one of the men from Black Fiend sect, who looked like the leader, extended his hand and pointed. He also looked at and pointed at the pile of rocks in the mine. They needed to be pushed out with carts. Sir, let this old man go too. My legs are fast, so I can move them faster. The skinny old man smiled and rushed over. He bowed and nodded to the Black Fiend sect disciple, hoping that he would also be able to move the rocks. All right, you and this little brat will be in a group. Hurry up, or else you'll be in for a treat. The large man nodded, indicating for the skinny old man to be in a group with Sui. Sui was a bit surprised, but he didn't show it. He felt that this skinny old man definitely had some secrets and was plotting something. Without leaving any traces, Sui and the skinny old man picked up the cart of rocks. It really was heavy. Although it didn't seem like much, it actually weighed at least 3,000 pounds. If it weren't for the fact that the cart was specially made, it probably wouldn't have been able to support such a weight. 2 carts were pushed by 4 people. In front of Sui were 2 old miners, and behind him was a young Black Fiend sect disciple who was urging him on. Sui was having a hard time. He had already been completely exhausted and hadn't had a chance to rest. He had been listening to them talk about the mine and hadn't been able to circulate his energy to recover. It didn't take long for Sui to begin to feel the strain. The cart he was pushing was clearly shaking. At this time, Sui suddenly felt that pushing the cart was much easier. It wasn't as strenuous as before. It's him helping. Sui felt it and looked at the skinny old man. It was the skinny old man who was helping. Little brat, hurry up. Don't dilly-dally. The skinny old man looked at Sui indifferently. Chapter 69. These extremely heavy rocks had to be transported out of the mine by manpower. Although savage beasts had great strength, there were many tunnels in the mine. Most savage beasts would not be able to enter. Taming a savage beast also required a lot of manpower and resources. The Black Fiend sect was not stupid. They might as well rely on manpower. Sui pushed the cart. With the help of the skinny old man, it was a lot easier for him. Along the way, he secretly memorized the route in his heart so that if he had the chance, he would not be able to leave the mine. At night, the mountain range was pitch black. Between the canyon and the mountain range, dark blue peaks overlapped. Within the stone hall, The Black Fiend sect's gray-robed elder white, a black-clothed youth, and an old man who looked to be in his 50s were seated. The old man in his 50s was dressed in a long gown. His sharp gaze proved that his cultivation was definitely not weak. I did not expect Elder White to personally come this time. Thank you, Elder White. The old man in his 50s was very respectful in front of Elder White with a smile in his eyes. The young master came out for a walk to broaden his horizons. Since I have nothing to do, I will accompany the young master. We are all elders of the Black Fiend sect. Elder, you need not be so polite. Elder White nodded and smiled. Young master is a young hero. At such a young age, you have already reached the first level of the profound origin realm. In the future, your future will be limitless. The old man who was addressed as Elder you said to the black-clothed youth. Although his words had a hint of flattery, the shock in his expression was genuine. At the age of 17, he had already reached the first level of the profound origin realm. This kind of talent was something that not many people in the entire savage demon forest could compare to. Elder Yu is too kind. My father specially instructed me to listen to Elder White on the way here. Now that I have arrived here, I must listen to Elder Yu. I must also represent him to thank Elder Yu for guarding the mine. Thank you for your hard work. The black-clothed youth said. Although his words seemed polite, his expression revealed a bit of arrogance. The Black Fiend sect was his family. He did not know why his father always told him to be humble in front of the elders. He was the young master of the Black Fiend sect. Sooner or later, he would become the pillar of the Black Fiend sect. Should these elders not respect him? Of course, this was his father's order, and the black-clothed youth didn't dare to show it. Thank you for your concern, sect master. This is part of my duty, and I will do my best. Young sect master, please don't be courteous. However, this place is completely desolate, and I'm afraid there is nothing to entertain young sect master. Perhaps I'll have to disappoint young sect master, said Elder Yu. I know this place is a desolate mountain range. I came here because I wanted to find some wild beasts to practice with. I see that tonight's night is pretty good. Why don't you guys go about your business, and I'll take a few people with me for a stroll. The black-clothed youth's eyes shone. His purpose in coming here was purely to practice. In the Black Fiend sect, it wasn't a problem to find a few savage beasts to practice with. However, the Black Fiend sect did not have the exhilaration of the wilderness. The feeling was completely different. What he wanted was to be able to roam freely in the outside world. He was really tired of training with those caged savage beasts. Young sect master, you can't. In this desolate mountain range. Although the level of the savage beasts won't be too high, I'm still afraid of encountering a wandering savage beast expert. Young sect master is the future of the Black Fiend sect. You can't have any accidents. Hearing this, Elder Bai immediately shook his head. This time, the sect master had personally handed the person over to him. The sect master had asked him to check on the progress of the mine and collect the previous batch of primeval stones. However, how could he not know that compared to the mine, the most important thing was the young sect master in front of him? If something happened to the young sect master this time, he would be the one to suffer. Even if the young sect master lost a single strand of hair, when he returned, the merit of this trip would be gone. Young sect master, you can't. How about this? Tomorrow morning, I'll personally accompany young sect master for a stroll. Elder Yu's expression darkened. If something happened to the young sect master in his territory, he wouldn't have a good time either. What's so fun in the day? It's too boring. Hunting at night is more fun. The black-clothed youth was somewhat disappointed. This time, he came out to find something new. Otherwise, he wouldn't be as comfortable as the Black Fiend sect. This, Elder Yu's eyes secretly moved. He didn't want the young sect master to come here and be disappointed. This wasn't good for him. No matter what, this young master was the young sect master of the Black Fiend sect. How about this, young sect master? Since Elder Bai has personally come, if young sect master really wants to go hunting at night, I'll personally accompany young sect master. I'll have to trouble Elder Bai with the mine. I wonder what Elder Bai thinks. Elder Yu asked Elder Bai. Although they were both elders, Elder Yu clearly knew that Elder Yu's position was much higher than his. Elder Yu was ranked third in the Black Fiend sect's elder group. Elder Yu's strength was also higher than his, and he was also one of the sect master's trusted aides. Good, this is also not bad. At least I can go experience it at night. If I can kill a few demon profound realm-level savage beasts, then this trip will not be in vain. Hearing this, the black-clothed youth was very happy. If he could kill a few demon profound realm-level savage beasts, he would definitely be proud of among his companions when he returned. Okay, but don't go too far. Just stay nearby. Elderby looked at the black-clothed youth's happy and expectant face and didn't want to pour cold water on him. He nodded and then instructed Elder Yu. Then I'll leave young sect master to Elder Yu. You must take good care of him. Yes, Elderby. Elder Yu nodded. He knew that there weren't any powerful savage beasts in the vicinity. Moreover, he would also carefully observe. He was afraid that this young sect master was just looking for a sense of novelty. K4 Look at the V. Version MZ Chapter W3 Section 3 Inches the Wilderness. This young sect master wouldn't be in the mood to go hunting in the middle of the night. Outside the mine, there was a place where these rocks were piled up. Inside the mine, there were precious pearls that were shining. No one knew the passage of time in the mine, but when Su-Yi pushed the rocks out, the moon was already high in the blue sky. However, the surroundings of the mine were as bright as day. The Black Fiend sect's disciples were not careless. Instead, they were even more vigilant. A few hundred feet away from the mine, there was a deep valley. All the rocks were transported into the deep valley. Rumble. Just like the two old miners, Su-Yi and the skinny old man pushed the rocks in the cart into the deep valley. The rocks rolled down, and a rumbling sound could be heard. It seemed that this deep valley was not shallow. Huff, huff. Chapter 70. Su-Yi took the opportunity to size up his surroundings, thinking of a way to escape. If he were to make a move now, this young Black Fiend sect disciple was roughly at the profound origin realm. If he were to ambush him, he might have a chance. However, the most difficult part was whether or not he would attract the attention of the other Black Fiend sect disciples. Once he was noticed, he would have no chance at all. If he did not attract the attention of the Black Fiend sect disciples in the distance, he might have a chance at survival. At this moment, there were no other Black Fiend sect disciples several hundred meters away from the mine. Su-Yi rapidly calculated in his mind. Was this chance great? Are you itching for a beating? Hurry up and go in. Do you want to die? When a young Black Fiend sect disciple saw the two old miners resting, he fiercely shouted and kicked one of them without any trace of politeness. Bang! The old miner's skinny body staggered a few steps from a kick. Hurry up! This young Black Fiend sect disciple was very ruthless and cold-blooded. He raised his leg and kicked the second old miner. Whoosh! At this moment, Su-Yi made his decision. If he returned to the mine, he did not know if he would have a chance to come out. If he wanted to escape from the mine, the chances would be at least 10 times more difficult than now. Without much time to hesitate, it seemed that this was the right time. The opportunity had arrived. Su-Yi made his move. He grabbed an extremely heavy rock that was scattered to the side and used it with the rising Yao Hunter transformation steps. Just as the young Black Fiend sect disciple raised his second leg, Su-Yi's figure appeared behind him. Explosively attacking and circulating his Yuan Qi, Su-Yi ruthlessly smashed the rock into the back of the former's head. All of this happened in one breath, as fast as lightning. Underhanded methods were Su-Yi's specialty. Bang! A muffled sound was immediately heard. The young Black Fiend sect disciple probably did not know what had happened. He simply did not expect that a miner would dare to underhandedly attack him. The back of his head was smashed open and blood splattered everywhere. Su-Yi used his full strength. With such strength, the young Black Fiend sect disciple's skull was smashed to smithereens, and he immediately breathed his last. This scene happened too quickly, so quickly that the skinny old man didn't even have time to react. By the time the skinny old man reacted, the young Black Fiend sect disciple had already breathed his last and collapsed to the ground. The two old miners were even more shocked. They never thought that this seemingly honest youth would actually have such courage and daring to directly kill a disciple of the Black Fiend sect. Everyone, quickly jump down and escape. There's still a chance of survival. If we go back, we'll be looking for death. He said to the skinny old man and the two old miners whose faces were still filled with shock. When he spoke, he did not stop at all. He turned around and was about to jump into the gorge. Below him was a deep valley, so there should be a passage. Although it was pitch black, he did not know what would happen if he jumped down. However, if he were to return to the mine, it would truly be dark. "Young man, I can't help it. Who told you to bump into me?" Suddenly, at this moment, he heard a sound that sounded like the buzz of a mosquito. Such a sound could only be heard by Yi alone. As the sound entered his ears, Yi's body, which had just turned around, suddenly froze, as if he was being pulled by something. Immediately, a loud shout came from behind him. "Not good. Murder. Someone killed a senior from the Black Fiend sect." Such a voice was very loud, enough to spread in all directions in the dark night. He quickly turned his head. The person behind him was none other than the skinny old man, who was actually pulling on his clothes with one hand. As the loud shout came out, Yi's expression changed greatly. His subconscious reaction was to directly shake his arm, and a simple and direct punch exploded toward the skinny old man. Yuan Qi in his meridians produced a rumbling sound, gathering in his fist and shaking the air. This was not the Overlord fist, but he had subconsciously used all his strength. Its power was not ordinary. "Someone's been killed. Help!" The skinny old man continued to shout, but his figure took the opportunity to dodge Yi's punch. He seemed to be in a difficult situation, but he also directly arrived at Yi's side, not letting go of the hand that was pulling on Yi's ragged clothes. "Chila!" He did not know what was going on, but he felt that the skinny old man took the opportunity to fling him. A force that could be considered gentle was continuous and heavy, and it directly sent him flying. "MF, I knew Cam most fast carrot you up then." He was flung dozens of feet away, and it looked like Yi himself had lost his balance and slipped. "Chila!" Yi's body brushed against the ground, his 4 feet facing the sky. Strong, very strong. At this moment, only Yi knew that the skinny old man was definitely a strong person. He had deliberately become a miner, and there must be a reason. "Audacious, do you want to die?" The loud shout from just now had immediately alerted the Black Fiend sect disciples, and one figure after another rushed over. He was not injured. Just as he was about to hastily climb up, many figures had already rushed over. Waves of fierce aura spread out, and various kinds of fierce blades, spears, swords, halberds, and other weapons were pointed at Yi from all directions. "Stay still, don't move." A Black Fiend sect disciple yelled at Yi. There were also Black Fiend sect disciples who immediately went to check on the young disciple. "It's over." Yi's face was grim to the extreme. At this moment, there were more than 10 disciples from the Black Fiend sect, and there were still others rushing over. The cultivation of any one of them was likely above his own. Amongst them, there was even the aura of an essence spirit realm cultivator. The two old miners had yet to recover from their shock, and were also tightly surrounded. "He killed him. He was killed by that brat. It was that brat who killed the Black Fiend sect's lord. It has nothing to do with us." The two old miners were flustered and terrified, and their faces were filled with shock as they pointed at Yi. Human nature. Yi helplessly sighed. This was human nature. At this moment, the person Yi hated the most was naturally the skinny old man. Just now, he had wanted to let the skinny old man leave with him, but he had not expected that the skinny old man would bite the hand that fed him. "Where is he?" At this moment, when Yi looked at the instigator, he was immediately stunned. The skinny old man who had been there just a moment ago had actually disappeared without a trace. It was as if he had completely disappeared without a trace. Dead. The burly man who was checking on the Black Fiend sect disciple killed by Yi stood up, shook his head, and said to the other Black Fiend sect disciples, "That disciple was already deader than dead. How dare you? You're courting death." A Black Fiend sect disciple shouted and kicked Yi. Bang! This kick contained a lot of strength. That Black Fiend sect disciple had a cultivation of the profound origin realm, so Su Yi was sent flying. Poochie! This kind of strength entered Su Yi's body, causing his chi and blood to churn. He directly spat out a mouthful of blood, and his body heavily smashed into the ground. This breath seems to be someone brought by Elder Bai. Keep him alive first, report to Elder Bai, and then punish him. The burly man who had just checked on the Black Fiend sect disciple spoke with an indifferent expression and continued, "Search for him. There's still one who escaped. Find him for me." Whoosh whoosh. Hearing this, the surrounding Black Fiend sect disciples immediately scattered and chased in all directions. They did not even enter the deep valley, and some Black Fiend sect disciples directly fell into the valley. Chi. The burly man who had just spoken seemed to have the highest status in this group of Black Fiend sect disciples. He immediately reached Su Yi's side, and several energy winds descended, placing a restriction on Su Yi's body, and said, "Take these two inside, and this brat into the prison cell to be guarded, and wait for his punishment." Yes, two Black Fiend sect disciples. One lifted Su Yi onto his shoulder, and the other escorted the two old miners, bringing the three of them back to the mine. "Chase, I want to see where he can escape to." The remaining Black Fiend sect disciples also joined in the pursuit of the skinny old man. Su Yi was once again restricted, and at this moment, 10,000 alpacas galloped through his heart towards the skinny old man. If it weren't for that skinny old man, he definitely would have had a chance to escape. Chapter 71. Brat, just you wait. You're really tired of living. Su Yi was brought back to the mine and thrown into a cell. The so-called cell was just a stone room that seemed to have been temporarily opened in the mine. The stone room wasn't big, but it wasn't small either. There was a thick stone door. The Black Fiend sect's disciple looked to be in his 30s. After throwing Su Yi into the stone room, he closed the stone door. Su Yi listened to the voice. The Black Fiend sect disciple should be waiting outside. Break through the restriction. This is my last chance. Su Yi was thrown into the cell by the restriction. However, this was his last chance. The Origin Supreme technique could break through the restriction. Hopefully, he could take the opportunity to escape. Without any delay, he immediately operated the Origin Supreme technique. Just like when he was trying to break through the restriction placed by Elder Bai, Su Yi began to break through the restriction placed by the Black Fiend sect's disciple. As he tried, Su Yi was secretly overjoyed. The restriction placed by the Black Fiend sect's disciple couldn't be compared to Elder Bai's. It was much weaker. He felt that breaking through this restriction would be much easier. Secretly breaking through the restriction in his body with all his strength, Su Yi's mind was solemn. He was racing against time. He was afraid that when the experts of the Black Fiend sect arrived, his life would be in danger. The consequences of killing someone from the Black Fiend sect could be imagined. Boom, rumble, not long after, a violent sound came from outside. The earth shook and the mountains swayed. The rumbling sound was endless, like an earthquake. "How dare you trespass into my Black Fiend sect's territory? Get out here." Immediately, the sound was like thunder. Su Yi, who was in the cell, could hear it clearly. "Someone is trespassing. Quick, quick, someone is invading my Black Fiend sect." Soon after, a commotion could be heard outside the cave. The Black Fiend sect's disciples hurriedly left. Rumble, outside the mine, there were continuous muffled sounds and screams. There were also the deafening roars of savage beasts. "Behave yourselves, or else you'll get it." Within the mine, there were also disciples of the Black Fiend sect berating him. It seemed that the miners had also started to become restless. Some of the Black Fiend sect's disciples were left behind to suppress the miners. It seems like the Black Fiend sect is in trouble. This is an excellent opportunity. Quickly reopen the seal. Su Yi's eyes flickered. Someone had come to invade the Black Fiend sect. He didn't know which power it was, but no matter who it was, this was a rare opportunity for him. However, the restriction on his body was still there. Su Yi sped up and went all out. The Black Fiend sect disciple who had set up the seal didn't seem to be particularly strong. The Origin Supreme technique was also very special. Under Su Yi's full power, It didn't take him much time to reopen the seal. Poochie, when the restriction was broken, Su immediately stood up and spat out a mouthful of blood. This injury was caused by the Black Fiend sect's disciple's kick. The injury wasn't light, but fortunately, Su wasn't seriously injured. Escape. Ignoring the injuries on his body, Su knew that this was a rare opportunity. The Black Fiend sect's disciple guarding outside the prison was no longer there. If he didn't escape now, when would he? Listening to the movements outside the stone door, Su was sure that there was no one outside the prison. Touching the stone door, Su gently pushed it. He felt that the stone door was very heavy and thick. It was made from extremely heavy rocks that had been mined. This stone door should have some kind of mechanism that could only be opened from the outside. It seemed like it could only be opened from the inside by force. Let's give it a try. Without any other choice, Su could only forcefully push open the stone door. Immediately, his palm pressed against the stone door. At the same time, the Yuan Qi in Su Yi's Yuan Qi whirlpool surged out from his meridians. It turned into a powerful force that poured onto the stone door, wanting to forcefully open it. Boom! The stone door trembled as if it was about to be forcefully pushed open. Suddenly, all of a sudden, without any warning, there was an unforeseen change in the tranquil atmosphere. Rumble. At this moment, just as Su Yi's Yuan Qi poured onto the stone door, the mysterious ball of light in Su Yi's mind seemed to be attracted by something and suddenly moved. Suddenly, a ray of light burst out from Su Yi's mind. A mysterious force swept out like lightning, making Su Yi unable to block it. But at this moment, Su Yi could clearly feel that the mysterious ball of light in his mind was emitting a strange force that directly covered the stone door. Strictly speaking, at this moment, Su Yi could feel that the mysterious ball of light in his mind was devouring some kind of energy within the stone door, some kind of weak energy. This feeling was familiar to Su Yi. It was exactly the same as when he was in front of the Yuan testing stone in the barbarian city. The mysterious ball of light had a power. At this moment, it was devouring the weak energy within the stone door, just like how it had devoured the energy from the Yuan testing stone. Could it be related to the Yuan stones? Su Yi was surprised, but immediately thought of a few possibilities. This stone door was made of this, or this was a Yuan stone mine. Most likely, this stone door was not made of Yuan stones, but it might contain some energy within. The Yuan testing stone was also a kind of Yuan stone. Back then, the mysterious ball of light had devoured the Yuan testing stone. Therefore, it was highly possible that the mysterious ball of light could not only devour the Yuan testing stone, but could also devour all Yuan stones. Su Yi was in shock as he pondered. He could not control his body, but he could clearly feel that a devouring force had formed in his palm and was absorbing the weak energy within the stone door like a silk cocoon. But at this moment, the energy within the mysterious ball of light did not stop there. A strange force passed through Su Yi's palm and directly surged into the stone door. Then, it seemed to want to explore even deeper. Walala, just as Su Yi felt that the weak energy within the stone door would be sucked dry in an instant from the ground and the ceiling of the prison cell that the stone door was connected to, a small amount of weak energy gathered and was immediately devoured. Walala. This weak energy continued to strengthen at an unimaginable speed in the blink of an eye. Boom! The weak energy became rich in an instant, and then gathered in front of Su Yi's palm, turning into a surge of energy that was directly absorbed and devoured. Boom! Inside the stone door, the ground and the ceiling of the prison cell began to shine brightly, revealing a mixture of gold, black, green, red, white, blue, and many other kinds of light. The multicolored light enveloped Su Yi and filled the entire prison cell. In particular, the place where Su Yi's palm was pressed against the stone door was even more dazzling, like a small sun. Rumble! The entire prison cell trembled and swayed. The ground quaked and the mountains swayed, as if it would collapse at any moment. Not good. The mine is going to collapse again. Get out quickly. The whole mine is going to collapse. Get out quickly. Chapter 72. If the mine collapsed, everyone would be buried. There was no way they could survive. At this moment, the disciples of the Black Fiend sect did not dare to stay. No one wanted to lose their lives. They were even scrambling to escape. Not long ago, a part of the mine had collapsed. The consequences were still lingering in their hearts. Dozens of people, including several disciples of the same sect, were directly smashed into meat paste. Their flesh and blood were badly mutilated. It was too horrible to look at. Rumble. The light was resplendent and dazzling. He was thoroughly shocked. Where did such a terrifying and rich energy come from? Compared to the energy on the primeval testing stone in the sacred mountain, who knew how much stronger it was? The energy inside the stone door was clearly very weak. How could it suddenly become so majestic? Moreover, according to the old miners, the primeval stones in the mine had clearly been extracted. Could it be? He remembered something. An old miner had said that this might be a mine. Could it be? He remembered something. An old miner had said that this might be a mine within a mine. In the depths of the mine, there might be another layer of primeval stones. The quality might even be better. And this stone door was connected to the mine. It was like a wire conducting electricity. At this moment, the energy inside the mysterious light was absorbing the weak energy inside the stone door. It also sensed that there was another layer of primeval stones in the mine, so it directly absorbed them together. Rumble. The earth in the prison shook. The light was so bright that he could no longer open his eyes. It was dazzling. He could only feel a rich and surging energy. Under the mysterious power of the mysterious light, it was crazily being absorbed and swallowed. Latest chapter. Section #Z above AAT the same time. The mysterious light in Suyi's mind was also blooming with a dazzling light. It was like a sun rising in his mind. In fact, it did not take too long. In about a moment, this astonishing movement calmed down and the light dissipated. Ding ding. A huge impact force poured into Suyi's palm. He staggered back a few steps and almost fell to the ground. Ka-ka. Subtle cracking sounds came out. The thick stone door in front of him now had cracks from the inside out. More and more cracks appeared, forming a dense spiderweb. Then, the entire thick stone door quietly collapsed, turning into a pile of powder under Suyi's shocked gaze. Outside the prison cell, many rocks tumbled down, but no one could be seen. It seemed that all the Black Fiend School disciples and miners had fled. He did not dare to stop. Vital chi surged under his feet, and he immediately flew out of the cell. Inside the mine, faint cracking sounds could be heard from time to time, as if something was cracking. The mine looked like it was about to collapse at any moment. Occasionally, small pieces of rock would fall down. Soon, he escaped from the mine. Ow! Bang, bang, bang. Outside the mine, it was a chaotic mess. Low and deep sounds of sonic booms and the roars of beasts lingered on incessantly. The radiance was dazzling, blossoming in the night sky, making the mountain range seem like it was daytime. He looked up and saw 3 figures fighting fiercely in the sky. Rumble. The 3 figures were surrounded by a dazzling radiance. Energy swept out like a storm, glistening with light, and a vast aura swept out in all directions. Among the 3 figures, he recognized 2 of them. The Black Fiend School's elder was one of them. The other was none other than the thin and small old man who tricked He once. The last person he had never seen before. He was also an old man in his 50s. At this moment, he was besieging the thin and small old man together with Elder Bai. From the aura, he could tell that although the second old man's cultivation was not as high as Elder Bai's, he was definitely not much weaker. He should be able to determine that he was definitely an expert from the Black Fiend School. Origin Void Stage Expert. What shocked even more was that these 3 people were not using vital chi to step into the air, but were actually floating in the air. To be able to do this, it undoubtedly proved that these 3 people had reached the Origin Void Stage. Come here, or I'll kill you first. As he swept out of the mine, a Black Fiend School expert coldly shouted. Not far away, his gaze was fixed on Su-yi. There were many Black Fiend School disciples in the surroundings, intimidating the group of miners in the surroundings. However, at this moment, the Black Fiend Sect's disciples were trembling as they watched the intense battle taking place in the sky. That was a battle between experts. They would not even be affected by the shockwaves. With the Black Fiend School's experts staring at him, Su-yi slowly walked over, not daring to take the risk. Fortunately, no one recognized Su-yi at this moment. Not long ago, Su-yi killed a Black Fiend School disciple. Only a dozen Black Fiend School disciples saw it, but they were not in the vicinity. Moreover, everyone was paying attention to the battle in the sky, so no one paid much attention to Su-yi. Thinking about how to escape, Su-yi's gaze was also fixed on the sky. The skinny old man who had tricked Su-yi released his aura at this moment. He was incomparably powerful. Even though he was fighting against Elder Bai and the other two Black Fiend sect experts, he didn't seem to be at a disadvantage. Who are you? How dare you have designs on my Black Fiend School? My Black Fiend School will not let you go even if you ascend to the heavens. A gloomy voice came out of Elder Bai's mouth. His voice was mixed with Yuan Qi, and it reverberated throughout the mountain range. It was deafening like thunder. So what if you're from the Black Fiend School? The skinny old man laughed and formed a hand seal. Yuan Qi surged, and a terrifying aura swept out, forming a gale in the sky. He directly collided with Elder Bai and Elder Bai, not falling into a disadvantageous position. Very, very strong. I'm afraid he's comparable to Wang Xuanda. Su-yi was stunned. Although he wanted to kick the skinny old man a few times in his heart, he could not help but secretly narrow his eyes when he felt the old man's strength. There was a burning sensation in his throat. This skinny old man was actually so strong. Su-yi listened to Elder Bai's words. It seemed that this skinny old man had taken the Black Fiend School's Yuan stones. Could it be that this guy came to the mine for the Yuan stones in the mine? Su-yi pondered. With his skinny old man's strength, how could he become a miner? He must have deliberately snuck in. For the Yuan stones in the mine, he even dared to have designs on the Black Fiend School. What a reckless thing. You even dared to have designs on the Black Fiend School. Don't think of leaving today. TSK. Elder Bai laughed coldly. The aura on his body erupted, shaking the sky. Swish! As Elder Bai's voice fell, a sharp sound of breaking wind was heard. Under the illumination of the energy light, two flashing dots of light appeared in the sky, expanding in an instant. Not good. The skinny old man's expression immediately darkened. He did not expect that the Black Fiend School still had experts nearby. They had already rushed over. How dare you offend my Black Fiend School? Are you courting death? A sinister chuckle sounded from afar. Soon after, the two dots of light grew larger and larger. In an instant, they stepped on the air and appeared in the sky. Chapter 73. At this moment, Su-yi finally understood why the Black Fiend sect could become one of the three major powers in the barbaric demon forest. All of a sudden, for Origin Void Realm experts appeared. How powerful was the Black Fiend sect's lineup? Seeing that two more Origin Void Realm cultivators had arrived, the skinny old man's expression truly changed. He didn't seem to have any confidence in fighting 1 against 4. Half a month ago, my Black Fiend sect's trading company was robbed. 10 days ago, my Black Fiend sect's medicinal herbs were stolen. It seems that it was also your doing? At this moment, with the addition of the two Black Fiend sect experts, Elder Bai and the other Yuan Void Stage expert stopped their attacks. They were no longer in a hurry. The other party was already a turtle in a jar. The skinny old man looked at the 4 Origin Void Realm cultivators around him. His eyes shined, and he said in a low voice, "It seems like you all came prepared, right? Kiki, that's right. Offending my Black Fiend sect twice in a row. This is provoking my Black Fiend sect. If there is one, then there will definitely be a third. Although we don't know where your next target will be, it will definitely be an important target of my Black Fiend sect. Therefore, I'm not afraid to tell you that all the important places of my Black Fiend sect have been set up with traps, waiting for you to come in. Today, I want to see who exactly you are. Who gave you the courage to offend my Black Fiend sect? Eldabai sneered. Everything had been set up long ago. However, this mine was considered a bit remote. Therefore, the Black Fiend sect's strongest lineup and experts had yet to come. However, this place had also made absolute preparations. There were experts watching from not far away, making it convenient for all parties to surround and annihilate at any time. Elderby didn't expect that he would really encounter this guy. Capturing this guy could be considered a great contribution. So that old guy has already targeted the Black Fiend sect several times. Su Yi's eyes narrowed. He didn't expect that the skinny old man had already targeted the Black Fiend sect several times. He actually didn't put the Black Fiend sect in his eyes. Do you really think that you can stop me if I want to leave? The skinny old man's eyes glowed coldly. Although he was inwardly serious, he also had confidence and certainty. Kiki, then let's see. You can't escape even if you have wings. Elderbai's cold words fell. At the same time, he attacked again. His hand seals were formed, and a sharp aura swept out from his palm. Golden light filled the air, and waves of golden light formed in front of him, like golden light arcs. After which, they swept towards the skinny old man from all directions. Do it. When they saw Elderby make a move, the other 3 Origin Void Stage experts from the Black Fiend sect weren't willing to be outdone, and they made a move in unison. Boom! One after another, the attacks carried Yuan Qi of various attributes. The light was dazzling, and the momentum was surging. Low muffled sounds spread out in the night sky. Bang bang! Despite being surrounded by 4 experts, the skinny old man was like duckweed as he dodged 2 of the attacks. He extended both of his hands, causing light to erupt and Yuan Qi to surge. He directly resisted the attacks, causing a terrifying gale of energy to erupt. After the skinny old man withstood the first wave of attacks from the 4 experts, he charged out in a tyrannical manner. Yuan power surged in his hand, emitting waves of turbulent energy ripples, after which he directly smashed out. Not good, R7s. At this moment, Su Yi's expression instantly changed. The skinny old man wasn't attacking others, but the group of people underground. Strictly speaking, the skinny old man's attack was aimed at the group of Black Fiend sect disciples on the ground, but he didn't show any mercy to the group of miners, including Sui. Everyone retreat, be careful. Seeing the skinny old man suddenly attacking the people below, Elderby and the others immediately shouted and blocked in a panic. Elderby and the others were well aware of the skinny old man's strength. The other Black Fiend sect disciples were simply no match for him. Chila, 2 Origin Void Stage experts from the Black Fiend sect blocked the skinny old man's attack, while Elderby and the other old man continued to attack the skinny old man. Rumble, although the 2 Origin Void Stage experts were in a panic, they barely managed to block the skinny old man's attack. Bang bang. But at this moment, the terrifying gale of energy swept out, creating huge ravines below, causing sand and rocks to fly. Ah, huffed. Instantly, the Black Fiend sect disciples and miners who were retreating in a panic let out miserable wails. Those who were closer to the shockwave were directly sent flying. Thud thud. The others also staggered back, creating chaos for a moment. Fortunately, Su Yi was quite far away and was already prepared to retreat. However, he was still impacted, causing his retreating body to stagger forward. Escape. Suddenly, it was also at this moment that Su Yi knew his opportunity had arrived. It was a rare opportunity. Chila. Borrowing the momentum from his staggered body, Su Yi's origin chi surged under his feet. A white light flickered as he stepped out with the soaring hunter transformation steps. Like an arrow leaving the bow, he charged into the mountain forest ahead. The surroundings were in chaos. The impact was too great. Many Black Fiend sect experts were seriously affected. After all, the skinny old man was mainly targeting the Black Fiend sect disciples. Seeing Elderby and the other person besieging him again, the skinny old man's face turned gloomy. A chill flashed across his eyes. Then, from between his eyebrows, there was an energy fluctuation. As if it had materialized, the energy condensed into 2 snake shadows in an instant. The snake shadows were like real objects. Their bodies were covered in snake scales and had white snake fangs, as if they were alive. Two strange auras that made one's heart palpitate immediately spread out from the two small snakes and swept towards Elderby and the other person. Soul attack. An alchemist? Looking at the two small snakes and feeling the strange aura, Elderby's expression suddenly became unprecedentedly solemn. That was a soul attack. The other party could actually be an alchemist. He ran away, not daring to stay in the slightest. Bang bang. The astonishing muffled sounds constantly came from behind, causing Su Yi's heart to tremble. That was a battle at the Yuan Void stage. Just the aftermath alone was not something an ordinary cultivator could contend against. At this moment, Su Yi was not the slightest bit interested in the outcome of the battle between the skinny old man and the Black Fiend Sex Elderby. At this moment, Su Yi only wanted to safely escape. Regardless of the outcome of the battle between the Black Fiend sect and the skinny old man, it would be beneficial to him. After all, they were both his enemies. However, Su Yi's heart trembled as he rapidly fled from the astonishing battle just now. He did not know when he would be able to reach such a stage. Not being careless, Su Yi's mind was also paying attention to his surroundings. Only when he felt that there were no Black Fiend sect members chasing after him did he relax a little. Chapter 74. Under the faint moonlight, Su Yi looked around. His figure was like a ghost as he shuttled into the forest. Although he had temporarily shaken off the Black Fiend sect, Su Yi did not dare to be careless. He was afraid that the disciples of the Black Fiend sect would chase after him. After all, he was still too weak. Deep in the forest, under the moonlight, Su Yi did not know how far he had run, until a ray of light appeared in the east. Huff, huff, Su Yi was panting. He could not endure it any longer. After all, his body was still injured. After a night of running, he could not endure it any longer. A mountain range appeared in front of him. After a while, Su Yi found a hidden natural cave. After taking measures to conceal himself, he entered. The cave was not big, but it was big enough for Su Yi to enter. Chila, sitting cross-legged, Su Yi immediately called out the mysterious space. A faint light rippled and rippled. Immediately after, it covered his entire body. The dazzling light was hazy, densely covering the cave. With Su Yi's injuries and consumption, he could recover faster in the mysterious space. Damn. When Su Yi entered the mysterious space, he was dumbfounded. His expression also froze. The space that was originally about 10 feet in size had now expanded to more than 100 feet. What kind of concept was 100 feet? It was almost half a kilometer in size. Compared to the original space, it had expanded by at least 10 times. More importantly, the energy in the space was so dense that it was frightening. The spiritual energy in the space was dense and oppressive. The surroundings were hazy and emitted a faint light. It was more like layers of fog. Su Yi was shocked. Looking carefully, this 100 feet space was now filled with soil and gravel. There were some changes from the original space. It's the mine. It must be. At this moment, Su Yi was sure that something had happened in the mine. The mysterious space had swallowed the energy in the mine, causing it to expand again, just like when Mansheng had absorbed the Yuan testing stone. A mine within a mine. Su Yi was certain that the mine was a mine within a mine. The ore in the mine had not been excavated yet, but had been swallowed and absorbed by the mysterious space. Su Yi smiled when he sensed the heaven and earth energy in the mysterious space that was so dense that it formed a mist. This could be considered as taking back some interest from the Black Fiend sect. When the Black Fiend sect discovered the results of the mining, they would definitely be flabbergasted. The source stones in the mine had long been sucked dry of energy. Time was of the essence, and they were still in the barbaric devil forest. Su Yi didn't dare to waste any time. He needed to be in peak condition at all times. Circulating the primordial origin supreme technique, Su Yi began to heal himself. At this moment, the energy of heaven and earth in this space surged as Su Yi circulated the Origin Supreme technique. At this moment, the energy in this space was simply surging to the point of surging, directly spreading towards Su Yi. Voila! Not long after, Su Yi's body was wrapped in a circle of light. It was like a divine radiance rippling, with a domineering and majestic aura spreading out. However, at this moment, Su Yi's mind was unable to calm down. From being thrown down the cliff by Wang Xuanda to the current situation of the Black Fiend sect, it was all because he was too weak. In this place where everything depended on one's fist, he was like a fish on the chopping block. At this moment, Su Yi wanted to strengthen himself like never before. He couldn't go on like this. He was lucky enough to escape from the cliff and the Black Fiend sect's mine, but what about the next time? Would he still be so lucky? In the sky above the mine, the mountain forest was in chaos. It was a complete mess and dazzling light. The intense battle was still ongoing. Puffed, under the siege of 4 Black Fiend sect's Yuan Void Stage experts, the skinny old man spat out a mouthful of blood and was directly pushed back in the air. However, at this moment, the 4 Yuan Void Stage experts of the Black Fiend sect were definitely not in a good state. Amongst them, the last 2 Origin Void Stage experts that came to provide support were injured as well, and they seemed to be in an extremely sorry state. You can't escape even if you have wings. Let's see how long you can resist. Seeing that the skinny old man was injured, Elder Bai's face was malicious and revealed a cold glint. As Elder Bai's voice fell, his figure instantly turned into an afterimage. He stepped on the air and shot toward the skinny old man like lightning. Raging flame, exploding palm. Seeing Elder Bai rush over, the skinny old man's eyes revealed a cold intent. In an instant, he condensed a hand seal as if he was already prepared. Suddenly, rolling fire attribute Yuan Qi gushed out from the surroundings. Rumble, accompanied by a kind of energy fluctuation of heaven and earth, the skinny old man hurriedly pushed out his palm. The scarlet-red color was like a tide. Then, under the stunned gazes of Elder Bai and the 3 nearby Yuan Void Stage experts, the palm seal directly exploded. Bang, bang, bang. This palm seal was like a bomb. In an instant, the surrounding air was torn apart as raging flames rose and poured down. Voila! The blazing aura was like a tornado that spread out in all directions, burning and destroying everything. What a powerful martial skill. The expressions of Elder Bai and the other 3 changed. They immediately attacked together and shattered the terrifying blazing energy into nothingness. Otherwise, all the Black Fiend sect disciples present would be in a tragic state. However, this delay allowed the skinny old man's figure to strangely disappear from the raging flames. He's already an arrow at the end of its flight. Over here, Chase. Elder Bai looked to the side and seemed to have also found the aura of the skinny old man who fled. He immediately waved his sleeve and chased after him. Swoosh, swoosh. The remaining 3 Yuan Void Stage experts of the Black Fiend sect also soared into the air. Their figures were like lightning as they immediately leaped into the air. The surrounding Black Fiend sect disciples and miners watched everything that had just happened in astonishment. They could not help but click their tongues. This was a battle between experts. How powerful and terrifying was it? Every move could shake the void and shake the earth. They did not even have the strength to be affected. Within the mysterious space, Su Yi's recovery speed was very fast. His pale face began to turn rosy, the Yuan Qi in his body was abundant, and the aura on his body also began to recover. Phew! After a while, Su Yi withdrew his hand seal. The light on his body gradually dissipated, and the energy faded. As he exhaled a mouthful of turbid air, his eyes opened. The light in his eyes was resplendent, but then it was restrained and turned into deep tenacity. Feeling that his body had recovered and his injuries were no longer a problem, Su Yi's eyes narrowed slightly. As a reincarnated human, could it be that I can't beat this world? From now on, I will accompany you to fight. In his tenacious eyes, light surged. Sui thought it through. The weak were prey to the strong, and he was meat on the chopping block. However, as a reincarnated human with treasures. Could it be that he would always be in such a sorry state? This was definitely not what he wanted. From now on, whether it was the Sacred Mountain or the Black Fiend sect, so what if they were powerful? As a reincarnated human with the memories of his previous life and the halo of reincarnation, could he still be trampled on by them? I must become a strong expert. Chapter 75. When Su-yi put away the mysterious space and walked out of the hidden cave, the sun shone its last rays on the mountain range. The dusk was hazy, and the sunset was like a red leaf covering the sky. Under the setting sun, the mountain range turned dark purple, like a reef in the sea of clouds. The mountain range was continuous, and the towering mountain range overlapped and connected. The forest was endless. Some of the ancient trees were astonishing, and the towering trees seemed to reach into the sky. They were comparable to the mountains covering the sky and the sun. It was a shocking sight. In a mountain forest, some vines grew out of the mountain, and they were like dragons. Oh! The mountain forest shook, and the towering trees swayed, and the roars of beasts were heard. At this moment, dozens of savage beasts appeared and surrounded a dozen figures. Among the dozen figures, there were a few absolute powerhouses. Yuan Qi formed under their feet, and they turned into beasts with powerful auras. But at this moment, there were a few powerful savage beasts in the group. Each of them was dozens of feet long, and they had sharp fangs. Some of them were covered in scales, and some of them had blade-like wings. These powerful savage beasts trapped the few powerful humans and launched a fierce attack. At the same time, the surrounding savage beasts went berserk. A ferocious bird spread its wings and swooped down. Its wings were dozens of feet long, and it tore a figure apart on the spot. "Protect the young master," an expert shouted with a grim expression on his face. No one had expected that they would really encounter such powerful savage beasts, and so many of them at that. Swish! At this moment, among the dozen figures, a black-clothed youth was being protected. His clothes were valiant, and he was extraordinary. He was none other than the young master of the Black Fiend sect. The young master's surname was Yin, and his name was Yohikami. He came out to hunt last night and wanted to kill a few demonic beasts. At first, Elder Yu accompanied him, but halfway, Elder Yu received a message that someone was coming. Elder Yu hurriedly left and ordered the remaining powerhouses to bring the young master back. But how could Yohikami be willing to give up such a rare opportunity? It was exactly what he had been looking for. Once Elder Yu left, the remaining Black Fiend School disciples were unable to suppress him and could only listen to him. As a result, they had come here. Along the way, they had indeed killed some savage beasts. However, Yohikami had not enjoyed himself to the fullest. He still wanted to go deeper. That was why he was in such a situation. Yohikami could no longer feel happy after encountering so many savage beasts and a few powerful leading savage beasts. His expression turned serious. Although the Black Fiend sect's disciples were protecting him with all their might, they also knocked their arrows and waited solemnly. These disciples of the Black Fiend sect were all elites that were handpicked from the sect. Their strength was nothing to scoff at. But even so, they could not help but shudder in the face of these ferocious beasts. Oh! Dozens of savage beasts roared. In an instant, the flying beasts and the land beasts erupted. They charged over one after another, causing the entire mountain forest to seethe as they continuously attacked the Black Fiend sect's disciples. In the mountain forest, the powerful, ferocious beasts with sharp claws and iron beaks flapped their wings, covering the entire mountain forest. In an instant, another few Black Fiend sect's elites were torn into pieces. Their flesh and blood were badly mutilated. "Young master, retreat quickly. Bring a few people to protect the young master and retreat quickly," an expert from a Black Fiend sect shouted. However, he was cursing in his heart. If the young master did not seek death, they would not have encountered so many savage beasts. If the young master really died here, even if they escaped, they would not be able to escape from the barbaric demon forest. The Black Fiend sect would not let them go. Therefore, they could only fight to the death and protect the young master as he retreated. Rumble. Oh, a deep explosion and a shocking beast roar spread across the area. Su Yi's figure appeared in a valley. The valley was very far away, but the terrain was very high. He could see the front from afar. It's the Black Fiend sect's people. The violent commotion attracted Su Yi's attention. When he saw the Black Fiend sect's disciples from afar, his expression immediately changed. Could it be that the Black Fiend sect's people had chased him all the way here? No, that's that brat. Suddenly, Su Yi saw a young man who was being protected by a few panic-stricken figures in the mountain forest ahead. How could Su Yi forget that young man? He was the Black Fiend sect's young master. His strength was at the profound origin realm. He might be stronger than Ji Chao, but not by much. Sensing the situation, Su Yi judged that these Black Fiend sect's people were not looking for him. For some unknown reason, they had encountered this group of powerful savage beasts. At this moment, the Black Fiend sect's young master was fleeing in panic. Although the Black Fiend sect's experts were present, looking at the situation in the distance, it seemed that the Black Fiend sect's experts were also powerless to protect themselves. For a gentleman to take revenge, 10 years is not too late. However, I'm not a gentleman. 10 years is too long for revenge. I'll act according to the circumstances. Suddenly, Su Yi's deep and bright eyes emitted a cold light as he stared into the distance. Chi! Immediately, Su Yi's figure flashed and immediately disappeared from where he stood. Young master, leave quickly. Oh, the Black Fiend sect's people fled in panic. Beast roars were like thunder as more than 10 savage beasts viciously chased after them. Several Black Fiend sect's elite disciples paled as they lost their heads out of fear. They escorted young master Yohikami back. They were afraid of those savage beasts, but they were also very clear that if something happened to the young master in front of them, they wouldn't be able to survive. Therefore, they could only risk their lives to escort him. If they succeeded, they would at least have done a great service. However, there were only a few of them, while more than 10 savage beasts chased after them. Their strength and cultivation were not below theirs. They were simply unable to contend against them, and could only hastily retreat. However, the speed of these savage beasts was not inferior to theirs. In fact, they were even faster. Especially when there were ferocious birds, it didn't take long for them to block their retreat. We're in trouble. The Black Fiend sect's disciples paled as they were surrounded by more than 10 savage beasts. They could only form a circle to protect Yohikami in the middle. In such a situation, the dozen savage beasts were all-powerful. Yohikami no longer had the mood to hunt and began to truly panic and fear. These savage beasts were simply not comparable to the ones that were locked up in the Black Fiend sect for him to practice his skills. Oh, the savage beasts were ferocious as they directly pounced and roared. These savage beasts either had shining scales or sharp fangs. Their imposing manner was astonishing. Their claws could crush steel, and their fangs could tear everything apart. He saw no hair go all out. These Black Fiend sect's disciples were also the elites of the Black Fiend sect. At this moment, they all had a fierce aura as they brandished their weapons. Rays of light flashed as Yuan Qi surged. Immediately, they engaged in a life-and-death battle with the savage beasts. Chapter 76. Roar! A 3-meter-long azure-light scarlet leopard appeared. Its fierce eyes shone with an ominous glint. The aura of the profound demon realm fluctuated. Its speed was incomparably fast. It leaped like a cheetah hunting for its prey, rushing towards Yohikami. Yin Shangyang, on the other hand, was not completely inexperienced. His talent was outstanding, and he was tempered by the resources of the Black Fiend sect. He was definitely not a flower in a greenhouse. Although he was a little panicked and fearful, he calmed down in the face of true danger. Whoosh! The bow and arrow that he had already prepared was suddenly released. The arrow turned into a bolt of lightning, aiming straight for the vital point of the azure light leopard. Although this leopard was still attacking, it was unbelievably agile. Its body, which was pouncing out at high speed, actually flipped to the side in an instant. Its body did a 180-degree turn and swiftly tapped on a huge rock beside it. Everything was done in one breath with a ferocious aura. It opened its front claws, which gleamed with a cold light, and pounced on Yin Shangyang again. Yohikami didn't expect the azure light leopard to be so fast and agile. He panicked for a moment, but at the same time, he knocked an arrow on his bow. His yuan qi surged, and the arrow was released. Whoosh! The arrow was like lightning, accompanied by the sharp sound of the wind breaking, and directly shot towards the azure light leopard. The azure light leopard's fierce eyes changed color. It seemed to have felt the power of the arrow and didn't dare to take it head-on. Roar! The azure light leopard's body left the ground, but it spun half a circle in the air, once again dodging the arrow. At the same time, its forepaws landed on the ground. It slightly paced, and its fierce eyes stared at Yohikami. It seemed that the azure light leopard was somewhat depressed after failing to catch its prey twice. Yohikami's 2 arrows didn't hit the target. He pulled out the quiver behind his back and quickly knocked an arrow on the bow. He looked at the azure light leopard with vigilance, and his expression was extremely serious. The azure light leopard's aura fluctuated, and its body glowed. Its sharp claws crushed the rock, and it was about to attack Yohikami again. Suddenly, the azure light leopard seemed to have felt something. It immediately turned around, and its fierce eyes looked to the side. Following the leopard's gaze, a thin figure quietly appeared from the forest. This figure was a 14 or 15-year-old youth. His long black hair draped over his shoulders, but it couldn't cover his handsome facial features, especially his pair of deep and bright eyes, which are like the brightest stars in the night sky, shining with brilliance. The person who came was dressed in ragged clothes, but it could not hide his unique temperament. He had a slight arrogance and a hint of evilness. Seeing the leopard's sudden reaction, Yohikami immediately followed its gaze. But when he saw the thin figure, Yohikami's face filled with shock. "Kid, how did you escape?" he cried out in alarm. The person who had just arrived was none other than Sui. After pondering for a moment, Sui made a decision in his heart. The people of the Black Hills sect were definitely in big trouble. Although there were still some experts from the Black Hills sect present, it was obvious that they couldn't even take care of themselves. They simply couldn't get away from the situation. At this very moment, it was undoubtedly the best opportunity for revenge. Although this was still dangerous, Sui felt that if he didn't take revenge, he wouldn't be a gentleman. For a gentleman to take revenge, 10 years is too late. Seize every moment. What a coincidence, we meet again. Sui stared at Yohikami. Although he had reached the Yuan Profound Realm, he wasn't that strong. He was stronger than Ji Chao from the Sacred Mountain, but not by much. Back then, when he was only at the first level of the Essence Soul stage, he was already able to contend against Ji Chao. Now that he was at the third level of the Essence Soul stage, and had also cultivated the Fuyao's 100 transformation steps, Sui had the confidence to face Yohikami. "Kid, you want to deal with me?" Sensing Sui's gaze, Yohikami wasn't stupid. He could tell that Sui didn't hide his intentions. That kid seemed to want to deal with him. Some debt should be paid back. It seems that no one can protect you now. Sui sneered. He had already sized up the situation around him. At this moment, the elite disciples of the Black Hills sect were besieged by more than a dozen savage beasts. Each of them couldn't even protect themselves. It was a tragic sight. How could they have the strength to protect Yohikami? The experts of the Black Fiend sect in the distance were also trapped by even more powerful savage beasts, which were not too far away. Otherwise, Sui wouldn't have chosen to show himself. TSK, kid, with just you? You're courting death. Yohikami sneered. He was afraid of the leopard, but he didn't put this kid in his eyes. He was already unhappy that he hadn't killed him last time. He hadn't expected him to escape. We'll only know who lives and who dies after we try. But I'm guessing that the one to die today will definitely be you. Sui sneered. A cold light flashed through his tenacious eyes. Hiss! Ku! Following Su Yi's words, a strong wind whistled, shaking the surroundings. Sand and stones flew into the air. A huge serpent several meters long appeared beside Su Yi. It opened its bloody mouth and flicked its scarlet tongue. It was very frightening. Up above, a vicious bird with a wingspan of several meters cut through the branches of a towering tree with a flap of its wings. It formed a torrential wind, and its claws were like hooks. This vicious bird and serpent both emitted a fierce aura. The killing intent in their eyes wasn't restrained at all as they stared at Su Yi. RR had GL hair for savage beasts. Humans were food. Especially for cultivators, their bodies contained energy. After devouring them, they would obtain a lot of benefits. However, at this moment, the serpent and vicious bird that were staring at Su Yi with killing intent in their eyes seemed to have sensed something that made them instinctively uneasy. "Kid, looks like I don't even need to do anything. You overestimate yourself." Yohikami sneered. This kid dare to deal with him? He didn't even need to do anything. Those two demonic beasts were almost at the demon spirit realm. He wondered how this kid would die. While sneering, Yohikami's heart became heavier. They didn't care about Su Yi at all. They didn't care about him at all. But now, his situation was getting more and more serious. This kid was just an interlude. But now, his crisis was getting worse. This was the biggest problem. Su Yi looked at the vicious bird circling above and the serpent beside him. Their aura wasn't weak. He was afraid that he wouldn't be able to deal with them. Boom! In an instant, Su Yi operated the Origin Supreme Art. Suddenly, as if they had sensed something, the ferocious bird and giant snake that were originally staring at Su Yi were instantly shocked. Fear gushed out from their eyes, and their bodies trembled as they slowly retreated, not daring to move forward. Roar! The leopard that was staring at Yin, Shangyang, let out a low growl from its throat. It looked at Su Yi with wariness in its eyes and a complicated expression on its face. It slowly retreated, as if it was afraid of something. Chapter 77. Why did these savage beasts suddenly have such a reaction? It seemed like they were still afraid of that brat. But at this moment, Su Yi's figure was like lightning as he directly pounced on Yohikami. Su Yi knew that the Origin Supreme technique could affect these savage beasts. This was also the reason why he chose to appear. The Black Fiend sex experts were all entangled, and his Origin Supreme technique could affect the savage beasts. Therefore, Su Yi decided to take advantage of this opportunity to attack. "Brat, you're courting death." In his shock, Yin Shangyang was no coward. He quickly regained his senses and pointed the bow in his hand at Su Yi, releasing the arrow with full force. Su Yi had already known the methods of the Black Fiend sex young master. Bow and arrow were a long-range weapon. Only by getting closer would he have a greater chance. Chila, the Fuyao's 100 transformation steps was both real and fake and real. It was unpredictable, and its speed was extremely fast. Su Yi was already prepared. The experience he had honed over the years was perfectly combined with the Fuyao's 100 transformation steps. It was simply like adding wings to a tiger. His figure dodged the arrow at an incredible angle. Xiao. Yin Shangyang's face changed color. With a flip of his hand, he threw out 3 arrows from his quiver. His figure retreated rapidly, all in one smooth motion. Triple sky, piercing arrow. At the same time, Yohikami drew his bow and shot 3 arrows at Su Yi, who was still retreating. Woo. The 3 arrows were shot out in a triangular formation. 3 sharp sounds of wind breaking resounded. The light was like lightning, blocking Su Yi's advancing figure. At this moment, Su Yi, who was retreating, was secretly paying attention. He did not expect Yohikami to be so strong. His archery was strange and powerful. Sensing the aura of the 3 arrows, Su Yi knew that it was impossible to avoid them. He did not dare to take them head-on either. In an instant, Su Yi's white wind attribute Yuan Qi swept out from the soles of his feet, forming a whirlpool under his feet. His figure was like a ghost, like a catkin in the wind, drifting through the gaps between the 3 arrows. Look at the original version of TF on section U or underscore. Chila. However, the fierce wind from the 3 arrows had shaved off quite a bit of the black hair on Su Yi's shoulders. The fierce wind scraped past his neck like a sharp blade, causing his hair to stand on end and his skin to tighten as pain spread through his body. But at this moment, Su Yi took the opportunity to appear in front of Yohikami. Yohikami's expression changed. He didn't think that the brat would be able to dodge his ultimate move. Even shooting 3 arrows at the same time seemed to have taken a lot of effort, so he didn't have the time to knock another arrow. "Brat, do you think I only rely on arrows?" Yohikami sneered. At this moment, it was obvious that the brat had escaped from the mine to kill him. Without enough time to draw the bow, Yohikami shook his arm. In an instant, a blazing fire attribute Yuan Qi gushed out from his body. A fingerprint condensed and pointed directly at Su Yi. Chia. The fingerprint was dazzling like a red snake. The angle was tricky and sinister as it swept towards Su Yi's head. Su Yi had already made his decision to take action. He also took in the situation around him and didn't underestimate the young master of the Black Fiend sect. Seeing the vicious fingerprint of the young master of the Black Fiend sect, Su Yi's heart sank and the corner of his mouth twitched. The young master of the Black Fiend sect did have some tricks up his sleeve. If it wasn't for the mysterious person's guidance in the deep valley, Su Yi felt that he would be in danger right now. It was a long story, but everything happened very quickly. When the red fingerprint appeared in front of Su Yi waved his hand and Yuan Qi surged. A tyrannical and invisible energy wave shattered the fingerprint into nothingness like a shockwave. After shattering the fingerprint, Su Yi was also prepared. His figure took the opportunity to close in. Suddenly, a black Yuan Qi rumbled from Su Yi's body. The Yuan Qi shuttled through a specific meridian, and an earth attribute Yuan Qi suddenly gathered and rose, finally gathering at his right foot. At this moment, Su Yi no longer held back the aura of the 3rd layer of the Essence Soul Realm. Within his eyes, a dazzling light flashed like lightning. His ragged clothes and black hair fluttered in the wind. His aura was indescribable, as if it carried the fury of thunder. 8 Desolate's fury, suppressing mountains and rivers with 1 foot. His shout was like thunder. Following Su Yi's shout, his right foot suddenly stepped out. Beneath his foot, a Yuan Qi vortex swept out like a storm. Boom! The earth trembled and the air rumbled. From where Su Yi's foot landed, circles of black earth attribute Yuan Qi energy swept out like waves. Crack, crack! The ground cracked. Cracks as thick as an arm spread out like a spiderweb. The surrounding rocks and broken trees were all shattered into fine powder in an instant. A woo! For some unknown reason, the nearby savage beasts' eyes were trembling as they constantly roared. Puffed! At this moment, a painful groan sounded from Yohikami's mouth. As his figure staggered backwards, the ground around his feet continuously cracked. A mouthful of blood was involuntarily spat out from his mouth. At this moment, the expression on Yohikami's face truly changed as shock surged up. He was injured. He had suffered a heavy blow. His opponent was clearly only at the 3rd layer of the Essence Soul Realm. He was a genuine 1st layer of the Yuan Profound Realm. Even if he was at the peak of the 9th layer of the Essence Soul Realm, there was still a huge gap between him and the 1st layer of the Yuan Profound Realm. However, that brat was only at the 3rd layer of the Essence Soul Realm. The strength that he had just displayed was actually so terrifying. If he had not been prepared and had cultivated some conjoined body techniques since he was young, the consequences would have been unimaginable. Su Yi's foot landed. His face was pale. The consumption of 8 Desolation Fury was too great. If he had not broken through to the 3rd layer of the Essence Soul Realm, Su Yi would not have dared to casually use it. He's stronger than I imagined. Seeing that the former was only injured and had not been knocked down by his attack, Su Yi's eyes immediately darkened. This Black Fiend sect's young master was much stronger than Ji Yun Shu of the Sacred Mountain. It had exceeded his expectations. Then, Su-yi saw that there was a layer of faint crimson light on the former's body. It was like a layer of mist that covered his exposed skin, tightly wrapping around his skin. Yuan-Chi barrier. Su-yi's eyes narrowed. At the Essence Soul realm, one would be able to release Yuan-Chi and form a Yuan-Chi barrier to protect one's body. The scarlet light covering the Black Fiend Sect's young master's exposed skin should be a Yuan-Chi barrier. Brat, I have to say that you're already very strong. It's a pity that the Yuan Profound Realm and the Essence Soul Realm are worlds apart. Now prepare to die. After suffering a heavy blow, dark red blood dripped from the corner of his mouth. Yohikami stared eerily at Su-yi. The Yuan-Chi within his body surged along with his killing intent, forming a layer of fiery light on the surface of his body. Swish! Chapter 78. In the blink of an eye, Yohikami appeared in front of Su-yi in a precarious situation. However, Yohikami also knew that the first person he needed to deal with was this brat. His killing intent intensified as he sent a palm strike straight for Su-yi's head. Although Yohikami was heavily injured, his palm strike was still as powerful as ever. The air in front of the palm strike buzzed as a resplendent light exploded. Facing Yohikami's fierce attack, Su-yi's expression turned grave. He had just used 8 Desolation Fury and did not have much strength left to contend against it. Without any delay, Su-yi instinctively retreated as profound energy surged beneath his feet. You're no match for me. You can't escape. Seeing Su-yi retreat, Yohikami's face was filled with malevolence. He was already unhappy with this brat the last time. He was at the first layer of the Yuan Profound Realm and had a king-tier talent. Now, he was actually beaten into such a sorry state by a brat at the 3rd layer of the Yuan Spirit Realm. The resentment in his heart could be imagined. Yohikami's palm strike changed as he clenched it into a fist. His fist surged with energy as it vibrated the air and materialized energy rays appeared. This was the manifestation of his Yuan-Chi. Only those who had reached the Yuan Profound Realm could use it. It was also the symbol of an Yuan Profound Realm cultivator. Su-yi's expression turned grave as he sensed the power of Yohikami's punch. He had already exhausted too much of his energy. If this continued, it would be disadvantageous for him. He inwardly clenched his teeth as the remaining Yuan-Chi in his body surged. Brat, you're too slow. You're courting death. With a cold shout, Yohikami found an opportunity. How could a brat at the 3rd layer of the Yuan Spirit Realm be his opponent? Although his fist was dodged, he simultaneously raised his arm and smashed it fiercely onto Su-yi's shoulder. Bang! A muffled sound rang out as a terrifying force poured down onto Su-yi's shoulder. At the same time, Su-yi's face turned malevolent as his veins popped out. Overlord Fist. At the same time, Su-yi let out a loud shout as his right fist appeared in front of Yohikami's head. A terrifying Yuan-Chi power erupted like a volcano as it suddenly exploded in front of Su-yi's eye. Bang! Everything happened in the blink of an eye. Su-yi's fist, which was glowing brightly, seemed to have swelled up. The sound of wind and thunder could be heard, like the rumbling of thunder. It was as if an overlord had awakened, and a huge pressure of an emperor was about to descend. Boom! Both of their fists met eyes as bodies as if bodies of an eye. Poochie, Su-yi spat out a mouthful of blood as his body was sent flying, crashing into the ground 3 feet away. Yohikami's body did not retreat, but his face was already badly mutilated. His eyeballs were protruding as blood flowed from his eyes. His expression was still filled with shock, fear, and unwillingness as his body fell backwards. The Black Fiend Sect's disciples who were bitterly holding on had been watching the fight from the corner of their eyes. Unfortunately, they could not even protect themselves and were unable to intervene. The Black Fiend Sect's 2 Origin Spirit Realm practitioners had formed their Yuan-Chi under their feet as they roared. However, they were also entangled by powerful savage beasts and were similarly unable to protect themselves. Young Sect Master, seeing Yohikami's body fall, The Black Fiend sect's disciples fell into despair. They had never imagined that a brat would suddenly appear and directly kill their young sect master. Awo! In the battle between Su-I and Yohikami, the giant snake, ferocious bird, and the cyan light leopard all retreated. Seeing Su-I being sent flying, they paced back and forth while growling. However, they did not dare to approach. Su-I crawled up with blood flowing from the corner of his mouth. His shoulder was broken, revealing traces of blood. Looking at the figure that had fallen several zhang away, he crawled up in one breath and immediately went to the former's side. "Brat, you're courting death." The Black Fiend sect's disciples, who could not even take care of themselves, angrily shouted as they watched the brat crawl up and go to their young sect master's side. However, they were similarly powerless. Without any delay, the Black Fiend sect's young sect master was already deader than dead. Su-I rummaged through his clothes and fished out a space pouch. Looking at the bough that had fallen not far away, his gaze was somewhat reluctant. However, he immediately staggered and leapt into the forest, disappearing from sight. The energy behind him collided with a muffled sound like thunder. Su-Yi's body staggered as he hurriedly left, not daring to stay any longer. Relying on his experience, Su-Yi searched for a place to hide. Of course, he did not dare to search nearby. The farther, the better. Su-Yi did not want to let go of the Black Fiend sect's young sect master. If he did not take revenge, he would not be a gentleman. Otherwise, the next time they met, it would undoubtedly cause more trouble for him. Furthermore, Su-Yi also had his eyes on the Black Fiend sect's young sect master. As the young sect master of the Black Fiend sect, he should have a lot of good things on him. What he needed at this moment was precisely cultivation resources. Since he had encountered him, it was fate. Seeing the bough that the former used, it should be quite valuable. Su-Yi resisted the urge to take it. He was afraid of wasting time, so he stopped while he was ahead. He was also afraid that the bow and arrow would be too eye-catching and he would not be able to use it. If he took action in the future, it might attract unwanted attention. Based on his experience in the barbarian demon forest, Su-Yi didn't forget to hide his tracks. He didn't know how far he had run before he came across a hidden cliff. The surroundings were verdant, and old trees were entwined like dragons. A natural crevice was densely covered with tree vines. It was precisely the hiding place that Su-Yi was looking for. In the messy battlefield, the corpses of savage beasts were strewn everywhere. It was a complete mess. The Black Fiend sect's elder by an elder you looked at the corpse of Yohikami lying on the ground. His face was beyond recognition. His flesh and blood were badly mangled. His pale face was gloomy to the extreme. "Little bastard, you can't escape. Find him for me." Elderby was furious. Compared to the accident in the mine, he was more unwilling to see something happen to the young sect master. His gloomy voice resounded, and the surrounding air was filled with a chill. Swoosh, swoosh. Although the remaining Black Fiend sect's elite disciples were in a sorry state with injuries, no one dared to delay. With a dignified expression, they rushed out and disappeared into the deep forest. 3 days later, it was night. The surroundings were silent. CL. New. Chapter 7. Section above. In the vast sky above the mountain range, stars began to twinkle in the vast sky. Occasionally, a few shrubs would appear beside the crevice. In the depths of the crevice, a faint light flashed, but it was very hidden. In the depths of the crevice, there was no trace of it. In the mysterious space, the energy of heaven and earth was rich. Su-Yi sat cross-legged with his hands forming seals. He was circulating the Origin Supreme art to heal his injuries. After 3 days, Su-Yi's pale face regained some color, and the aura on his body was no longer weak. Huff! At a certain moment, a mouthful of turbid air was exhaled. The light around his body converged. Su-Yi's closed eyes opened. The light was dazzling, but it soon turned into a deep and tenacious look. He's gotten a bit stronger. Chapter 79. Every time I reach my limit, I'll become stronger. Soon, Su-Yi understood. The process of cultivation was a process of tempering and improvement. Every upgrade was a metamorphosis. The most common comparison was like working out, training again and again, tearing muscles, and challenging the limit again and again. But in exchange, he would surpass himself again and again. The process of cultivation was the same. After reaching one's limit again and again, he would become stronger than before. This was a gradual transformation, a gradual transcendence. Looking at his shoulder, which had been smashed by the Black Fiend Sect's young master's fist, his skin had been broken and blood had seeped out. But now, it had completely recovered. His skin was faintly flickering with a luster like warm jade. Suyi's lips curved into a smile. He knew that this was due to the Origin Supreme art. 3 years of body refining had allowed his body to surpass his peers. From his fight with Ji Chao, Su-Yi knew how powerful his body was. In the end, he had no choice but to grit his teeth and face the Black Fiend Sect's young master head-on. That was close. Thinking of the Black Fiend Sect's young master, Su-Yi's smile faded. This time, it was indeed a little risky. The consequences were almost unthinkable. Recalling the situation of their fight, Su-Yi felt that he was a little rash. Coupled with a mistake in judgment, he did not kill the Black Fiend Sect's young master in one blow as he had expected. The consequences were unthinkable, and he had fallen into a desperate situation. In the end, being able to kill the Black Fiend Sect's young master and escape, it had to be said that there was a little bit of luck involved. There is a qualitative difference between the profound origin stage and the essence soul stage. Su-Yi muttered softly. When he fought with Ji Chao from the Sacred Mountain, Ji Chao was only at the peak of the 9th layer essence soul stage, half a step away from the true profound origin stage. But the Black Fiend Sect's young master was a true profound origin stage cultivator. He could condense a profound qi shield, expose his yuan qi, and condense yuan qi into solid yuan qi energy. These were all things that could only be done at the profound origin stage. Squinting his eyes, Su-Yi knew that he had made a mistake in his judgment this time. Next time, he absolutely could not do this again, or the consequences would be unimaginable. After tidying himself up, Su-Yi put away the mysterious space and appeared in the crevice. This time, Su-Yi was not without gains. Not only did he kill the Black Fiend Sect's young master, he also obtained a spatial bag. Inside the crevice, Su-Yi stretched out his hand, and a spatial bag appeared in his hand. It was the size of a palm and looked like a brocade bag. It was suffused with a luster. This was the interspatial bag that he had obtained from the Black Fiend Sect's young sect master. Su-Yi had taken the risk to deal with the former not only because he wanted to settle the debt from back then, but also because he wanted to use his identity as the Black Fiend Sect's young sect master. Su-Yi guessed that the Black Fiend Sect's young sect master definitely had a spatial bag on him. There might be a lot of cultivation resources inside. If he wanted to become an expert, what he lacked the most right now was cultivation resources. Su-Yi curled his lips again when he looked at the interspatial bag in his hand. The interspatial bag itself was a treasure, so it was worth quite a lot. Su-Yi was looking forward to the items inside the interspatial bag even more at this moment. There's a restriction on it. How do I open it? Despite that, Su-Yi was faced with a problem. There was a restriction on the interspatial bag, so it could not be opened. Su-Yi had never owned an interspatial bag, but he had heard of them. Interspatial bags were valuable items. Apart from being portable, every interspatial bag needed to be dripped with blood to recognize its owner. Finally, a unique restriction would be set on the bag. As such, the interspatial bag could only be opened by itself. If someone forcefully opened the bag, everything inside would be destroyed. Nonetheless, the restriction was not completely indestructible. It could be destroyed in the face of absolute power. Alternatively, powerful blacksmiths would have some unique techniques that could help in opening the restriction on an interspatial bag. Su-Yi thought about the way to open the interspatial bag's restriction in his mind. Back when Su-Yi was at the mysterious man's place at the bottom of the 30,000 meters tall cliff, he did not only obtain the heaven-controlling art, but also plenty of cultivation knowledge. It was like an inheritance. I've got it. Following that, Sue smiled because he found a way. If his strength was on par with that of the person who set the restriction on the interspatial bag, it was very likely that he could break the restriction. Strictly speaking, there were two conditions to break a restriction that was set up by someone else. Firstly, one's strength must not be inferior to the person who set up the restriction. Secondly, which was also the most important condition, one's soul power must be greater than the person's. Sue was secretly delighted. He did not have the cultivation base of the black evil sect's young sect master, but he was a proper, soul-controlling master. His soul power was his forte, so he could give it a try. After familiarizing himself with the method to break the restriction, Sue sank into his thoughts and sat with his legs crossed again. He planned to try to open the interspatial bag's restriction. Swoosh! A handprint was made, and there was a fluctuation of primordial chi that shone brightly. Sue began to try to break the interspatial bag's restriction. He controlled a primordial chi fluctuation on his palm, and his illusory soul power spread quietly. Along with the primordial chi, it wrapped around the interspatial bag in his palm. Boom! All of a sudden, a scene that was completely out of Sue's expectations appeared. The instant the primordial chi on his palm touched the interspatial bag, the mysterious space in his mind went berserk again. Whoosh! A light was instantly released from Sue's mind. A familiar and mysterious power gushed out like a bolt of lightning and covered the interspatial bag. Sue could clearly sense that the mysterious light in his mind was devouring some kind of energy inside the interspatial bag at the moment. That instant, the interspatial bag emitted a dazzling light. Sue was enveloped in the light, and nothing could stop it. He could only sense that there was a surging energy fluctuation between the mysterious light and the interspatial bag at the moment. Not long after, in less than 3 minutes, the interspatial bag's light began to dim. The mysterious light in Sue's mind stopped reacting. It calmed down again as if nothing had happened. Crack! Crack! A faint sound was heard coming from the interspatial bag on his palm. The restriction had unknowingly shattered and disappeared. Sue was dumbfounded and did not come back to his senses. Could the mysterious light have the effect of breaking the interspatial bag's restriction? But I clearly sensed that the mysterious light seemed to be devouring some kind of energy inside the interspatial bag. After coming back to his senses, Sue immediately checked the interspatial bag. He turned it upside down, and many items inside poured out. Whoosh! Stones rolled out from the interspatial bag and turned into powder as soon as they hit the ground. Chapter 80. In the end, the stones that fell out of the space bag turned into powder, which was several meters in size. Fortunately, there was another world in the crack, and the area was not small. Otherwise, it would have been enough to drown everything. They're not stones, they're vitality stones. Sue examined the powder in astonishment. It was exactly the same as the primordial testing stone in Barbarian City, and the powder was almost the same. How could it be stone powder? It was clearly primordial stones. No one would put stones in their interspatial bag for no reason. Sue finally understood why the mysterious light ball reacted. It turned out that there were vitality stones in the space bag, which caused the mysterious light ball to react. The mysterious ball of light had actually absorbed so many primordial stones, even though it was separated by the space bag. This also shocked Sue. He didn't know that the mysterious orb had such a perverse effect. Faintly, Sue's heart ached. Judging from the amount of vitality stone powder, there was definitely a huge amount of vitality stones in the space bag. It was a huge fortune. But now, the vitality stones had all turned into powder and were absorbed by the mysterious light ball. Are there any other good things? Sue turned the space bag upside down and searched carefully, not wanting to miss anything. After that, Sue really did find something else in the primordial stone powder. There were 3 jade bottles containing pills, 2 yellowed scrolls, and a large pile of fresh herbs. They were still connected to the roots, which seemed to have been picked not long ago. There were also 2 quivers filled with arrows. Sue recognized them at a glance. They were exactly the same as the quivers on the back of the Black Fiend sect's young sect master. They were made by him. There was also a long sword. Judging from the texture of the material, it should be worth a lot. Red jade grass, spirit amplifying tea, jade bamboo, seven-leaved nightshade. Sue checked the pile of herbs. They were not herbs, but spiritual herbs. One could imagine the value of spiritual herbs used to refine pills. Vitality recovery pill, soul stabilizing pill, earth profound pill. Subsequently, Sue inspected the 3 bottles of elixirs. They were the essence recovery elixir for healing injuries, the earth profound elixir for consolidating one's cultivation at the profound origin realm, and the soul stabilizing elixir for consolidating one's cultivation at the soul essence realm. There were 10 vitality recovery pills and earth profound pills, but only 3 soul stabilizing pills. I'm rich, Sue was pleasantly surprised. As he had expected, the young master of the Black Fiend sect had quite a lot of cultivation resources on him. That pile of herbs was already shockingly valuable. The Vitality Recovery Pill and the Earth Profound Pill were both high-grade moon-grade pills. Back in the Sue family, the Origin Spirit Pill that Grandpa gave him was only a low-tier moon-grade pill. Even the Soul-Stabilizing Pill was a mid-tier moon-tier pill, which was 1 tier higher than the Origin Spirit Pill. B*/W Mr. U. Even though it was only 1 grade higher, the difference in price was like the difference between heaven and earth. The difference was at least 10 times. 2 sets of martial arts techniques. After Sue inspected the 2 scrolls, he realized that they were 2 sets of martial arts techniques. There were words on the scrolls that looked like seal scripts. One of them was called 7 Wound Fists, and the other was called Scarlet Flame Palm. They were both martial-grade martial arts techniques. According to Su Yi's knowledge, the entire Su family was far from having any martial-grade martial arts techniques. Back in the Sacred Mountain, Ji Chao had used king-grade martial arts techniques. Martial-grade martial arts techniques were already extraordinary. Even though they were not king-grade martial arts techniques, they were not emperor-grade martial arts techniques like the Fuyao 100 transformation steps. However, Su Yi knew very well that if people knew that he had 2 martial-grade martial arts techniques, he would be hunted down by countless people in the barbarian demon forest. I've struck it rich. Looking at what he had, Su Yi's joy was indescribable. It was the first time he had seen so many good things in his life. The space bag, the 2 martial-grade martial arts techniques, and the 3 bottles of elixir pills were enough to trade for the entire barbarian city. Moreover, the primordial stone powder that had been poured out of the space bag proved that there was a huge pile of primordial stones inside. Even the lowest grade of primordial stones was priceless. Even though the energy had been absorbed by the mysterious ball of light, it was still beneficial to him in the mysterious space. At that moment, Su Yi did not know that the space bag he had found from the Black Fiend sect's young sect master did not belong to him. It was the Black Fiend sect's transportation space bag. The Black Fiend sect had many mines, shops, and other businesses. Naturally, they relied on the space bag and powerhouses for transportation. However, this time, Elder Bai had brought Yo Hikami to the mine. Although he had an ulterior motive, he also wanted to bring back a batch of primordial stones that had been mined from the mine. Speaking of which, this large amount of primeval stones should have been given to Elder Bai himself. However, Elder Bai had purposely given the primordial stones to Yo Hikami to prevent people from targeting the Black Fiend sect. Moreover, Elder Bai had purposely wanted to curry favor with the young sect master and give him the impression that he was worthy of great responsibility. However, Elder Bai did not expect that Yo Hikami would be killed by Su Yi and the space bag would be taken away by Su Yi. At that moment, Su Yi still thought that he had only taken the Black Fiend sect's young sect master space bag. He did not know that he had actually taken the last batch of primordial stones that had been mined from the Black Fiend sect's mine. It was also the largest batch of primordial stones. The skinny old man also did not know that he had risked his life, deliberately entered the mine, and tricked Su Yi in the end, all for the sake of that batch of primordial stones. However, The last batch of primordial stones had fallen into Su Yi's hands. If he knew about this, his expression would definitely be very interesting. At that moment, Su Yi did not know how many primordial stones he had obtained. In any case, what appeared in front of Su Yi was a pile of primordial stone powder. I wonder if the mysterious space has expanded again. Su Yi did not know how many primordial stones there were, but he knew very well that after absorbing the energy within the primordial stones, the mysterious space would expand again. It was possible that the energy within the space would become even denser. Su Yi formed a hand seal and summoned the mysterious space again. However, to Su Yi's surprise, after entering the mysterious space again, for some reason, the space did not continue to expand this time. The mysterious space was still about 300 meters wide, and its area of half a kilometer did not expand. It's so dense. Despite that, Su Yi was also shocked. The energy in the space was much denser than before he had opened the interspatial bag. It was so dense that it was simply frightening. At that moment, the energy of heaven and earth in the space was so dense that it was oppressive. The surroundings were hazy and emitted a faint light. The space was about 300 meters wide, and the ground that looked like soil was currently filled with mist. Strictly speaking, the mist that was floating in the air seemed to be materialized energy. Chapter 81. There must be a lot of primal stones in the interspatial bag. Su Yi's eyes were filled with joy. He sensed the increased energy in the mysterious space, so it was not difficult for him to confirm that there were a lot of primal stones in the interspatial bag. Holding back the joy in his heart, Su Yi placed the 3 bottles of pills that he had just obtained in space. The mysterious space had a great function. By placing pills inside, it could directly improve their quality and medicinal efficacy. Su Yi did not want to miss out on the benefits of the mysterious space. The mysterious space had absorbed so many primal stones that should have belonged to him, so it naturally needed to give him some benefits. If he placed the pills in the space for a period of time, their quality and medicinal efficacy could not be compared to now. If the spiritual herbs can improve the quality of pills, then all of a sudden, Su Yi looked at the soil in the mysterious space. It suddenly occurred to him that the mysterious space could improve the quality and medicinal efficacy of pills. If he directly planted the spiritual herbs in the space, would their quality and rank be improved? With that thought in mind, Su Yi instantly got to work. Using the sword he obtained from the interspatial bag as a hoe, Su Yi spent a total of 4 hours digging out an area of several meters in the soil of the interspatial bag. He carefully planted the spiritual herbs he obtained. After that, he stood up with satisfaction. His heart was filled with anticipation, but he was also a little nervous. If he succeeded, the mysterious space could improve the medicinal efficacy and quality of spiritual herbs, and he would be rich in the future. Hey, what's that? All of a sudden, Su Yi noticed something special. In the center of the space, a small pit with a diameter of about 1.5 meters appeared on the ground that was raised like a small hill. The small pit was surrounded by bright and transparent rocks, which looked like the mouth of a well. At the bottom of the pit, a layer of liquid that was as thick as a palm overflowed. It looked like white water, but was thicker. It was crystal clear, colorless, and odorless. What's this? A mountain spring? Su Yi was curious. He leaned down and swept the crystal-clear liquid with his hand. He actually felt an appetite. For some reason, Su Yi scooped up a mouthful of the liquid with one hand and brought it to his mouth. Then he drank it in one gulp out of habit. It tasted cool and refreshing, like a sweet spring. But then, this sweet liquid instantly streaked across Su Yi's throat and turned into a huge amount of energy that rushed into Su Yi's body. The shockwaves caused Su Yi's body to feel as if it had been struck by lightning. Rumble. The huge impact was like a bomb exploding in Su Yi's body, almost tearing Su Yi's body apart. It also caused Su Yi to stumble and fall to the ground. Walala. In an instant, from Su Yi's body to the outside, a surge of energy gushed out. The light was pure white and flawless, finally wrapping around Su Yi's body. Su Yi was not prepared for this at all. That mouthful of spring-like liquid immediately turned into a surge of surging energy in his body, gushing out in all directions. This surge of energy seemed to want to explode Su Yi's body. If it weren't for Su Yi's strong body, it was likely that his body would have exploded. What a huge amount of energy. This is bad. Su Yi instantly came back to his senses, and his expression changed greatly. He didn't expect that the spring-like liquid would contain such an abnormal amount of energy. It was too surging, as if it wanted to explode his body. Under the impact of his meridians, muscles, and internal organs, the tearing pain seemed to have reached the extreme, causing Su Yi to be in indescribable pain. Subconsciously, Su Yi gritted his teeth and sat down cross-legged, operating the Origin Supreme technique, wanting to consume and refine the surging energy. The surging energy rushed through his body like countless wild horses galloping. As Su Yi operated the Origin Supreme technique, he immediately began to absorb and refine the surging energy. According to the operation of the Origin Supreme technique, the energy flowed through his meridians, being refined, and then slowly turned into pure yuan qi. Fortunately, the spring-like liquid didn't resist and immediately began to be refined along with Su Yi's Origin Supreme technique. However, the powerful impact was still there. The energy transformed from the spring-like liquid was not something that Su Yi could easily bear with his current cultivation. While refining the energy in his body, Su Yi's body trembled and his face twitched. Dense cold sweat constantly spread out on his forehead. The tearing pain caused by the impact in Su Yi's body was unbearable for ordinary people. Clenching his teeth and enduring the twitching pain in his body, Su Yi was miserable. Su Yi didn't expect the spring-like liquid to be so terrifying, but now he was powerless and could only refine it with all his strength. Otherwise, this surging energy would sooner or later burst his body. Fortunately, the Origin Supreme technique could refine this energy, which relieved a lot of pressure for Su Yi. As a short period of time passed, the intense pain also slowly subsided. Su Yi finally relaxed a lot, but his body was still filled with the surging energy. In the Dantian's yuan qi vortex, wisps of pure yuan qi poured in, all refined by the surging energy. This caused Su Yi to be both surprised and delighted. Looking at the situation, although he had almost exploded from the impact, he was certain that this mountain spring-like liquid contained surging energy that he could use. At this moment, Su Yi could feel that the wisps of yuan qi were gathering and surging in, and his aura continued to rise. It looked like he was about to break through. Feeling this change, Su Yi was ecstatic. He tried to control the rhythm and poured the refined yuan qi into the yuan qi vortex. In the Dantian's yuan qi vortex, the yuan qi became more and more abundant. Buzz, buzz. The yuan qi in Su Yi's Dantian rotated faster and faster, as if forming a storm, letting out a low rumbling sound like wind and thunder. The yuan qi continued to pour in, becoming more and more abundant. In the end, Su Yi's Dantian's yuan qi vortex could no longer store it. The yuan qi even filled his meridians, as if it was about to explode. Bang! At a certain moment, a muffled sound came from Su Yi's Dantian. The Dantian's yuan qi vortex suddenly stopped, as if it had exploded, and then the vortex spread out in the opposite direction, turning into a vacuum. $J version %, first X release, another breakthrough. Sensing this change, Su Yi's lips curved into a smile. This was a sign that he was about to break through again. Walala! Suddenly, Su Yi's face changed again. There was still a lot of surging energy in his body that had not been refined. But at this moment, these unrefined energy, accompanied by the surrounding energy of heaven and earth, suddenly rushed towards him crazily. Chapter 82. For some reason, the heaven and earth energy and the energy that had not been refined directly poured into Su Yi's Dantian Qi Si, and in an instant, it It was compressed again and again. At this moment, an even more strange scene appeared. When the energy entered Su Yi's Dantian Qi Si, it did not seem to need to be refined. It directly compressed into Yuan Qi and crazily filled Su Yi's Dantian Qi vortex. Everything was like a bomb with a fuse ignited. It was incomparably fierce and surging. Rumble, the aura on Su Yi's body soared one after another. The Dantian Qi vortex was like a hurricane at this moment. Bang! With two consecutive muffled sounds, the Dantian Qi vortex grew larger and larger. The violent Yuan Qi rushed out, and the energy surged. He was shocked. He could clearly feel that he was strengthening again and again. That enhanced feeling of carefreeness was incomparable. Walala! The violent and rich heaven and earth energy was still pouring in, as if it was endless. The energy in this space was already astonishingly rich. The Yuan Qi vortex was still crazily rising, and the energy rushed in. However, although this kind of increase brought an incomparable sense of satisfaction, it also made Su Yi feel uneasy. Su Yi felt that continuing to break through like this would not be a good thing. A tall building had to be built from the ground. Everything had to be done step by step. If this continued, it would only be harmful. I can't go on like this. Su Yi felt uneasy. He secretly gritted his teeth and forcibly controlled the Yuan Qi in his body. The primeval chaos supreme technique was operating. He wanted to cut off the connection between his body and the external energy. The Yuan Qi that rushed into the Dantian Qi vortex was forcibly compressed. This process was like looking for abuse. It was like the river was flowing backward. You had HC here. GSU, he forcibly cut it off. He could not continue to break through like this. This kind of breakthrough made Su Yi feel uneasy. At this moment, if there was a powerhouse here, he would probably secretly click his tongue. As a martial artist, he could actually resist the incomparable temptation in front of a breakthrough, not to mention a 14 or 15-year-old boy. This kind of determination and tenacity was not ordinary. Walala. Su Yi forcibly cut off the surrounding energy of heaven and earth, and the rising aura on his body was also forcibly suppressed. Phew! After taking a deep breath, Su Yi felt relieved. He could feel the remaining energy in his body, as well as the compressed energy sinking into his flesh, bones, meridians, and internal organs. With the invasion of this energy, Su Yi's internal organs, bones, blood, flesh, and meridians all seemed to be being refined. There was a feeling of transformation. More than half a day passed before it gradually calmed down. As the energy subsided, Su Yi's aura weakened as well. Finally, it returned to normal. When the aura on his body completely calmed down, Su Yi, who was sitting cross-legged, his tattered clothes fluttered without any wind. Boom! An aura that was many times stronger than before he drank the spring-like liquid seemed to have awakened within Su Yi's body. It immediately swept out, bringing with it a great might and destruction. Qila. At this moment, Su Yi's eyes, which were tightly shut, suddenly opened. From his eyes, a dazzling light burst out, as if it had materialized. It flashed before his eyes, and then gradually receded into tenacity and depth. 6th level of the Essence Soul Realm. Feeling the aura and changes within his body, Su Yi's face was filled with astonishment. It was still somewhat difficult for him to recover. At this moment, the aura within his body had clearly reached the 6th level of the Essence Soul Realm. Moreover, it was close to the late 6th level. From the original 3rd level of the Essence Soul Realm to the current 6th level of the Essence Soul Realm, he had broken through 3 levels consecutively. Furthermore, the higher the level, the more difficult it was to break through. Compared to the 1st to 2nd level of the Essence Soul Realm, the 5th to 6th level of the Essence Soul Realm was naturally much more difficult. Su Yi was very clear that if he had not forcibly suppressed the breakthrough, he might not have known how far he would have broken through. Gulp! Such consecutive breakthroughs left Su Yi speechless. He sucked in a breath of cold air. This kind of consecutive breakthroughs was too great. Carefully sensing his body, not only did the yuan qi vortex in his dantian increase sharply, but the soul power in his mind had also improved significantly. The energy contained within the spring-like liquid could not only strengthen yuan qi, but also nourish the soul and enhance the soul power. This is a treasure. Looking at the small well-like pit not far away, and the liquid that was as thick as a palm, Su Yi's eyes trembled. Although he did not know what it was, Su Yi was certain that it was definitely a treasure. Su Yi thought to himself, this spirit liquid could increase his strength and cultivation. Perhaps it could also increase his grandfather's strength. In that case, his grandfather would have the opportunity to advance further. However, Su Yi immediately frowned. Although this spirit liquid could allow his cultivation to break through, his grandfather's cultivation was much stronger than his. This spirit liquid might be effective for him, but it might not be effective for his grandfather. I can't take the risk to strengthen myself and find a really useful high-grade elixir for my grandfather. After a while, Su Yi took a deep breath. It would be safer to find a high-grade elixir. In order to find such a high-grade elixir, he first needed to become a powerhouse. Soul-stabilizing elixir. After a while, Su Yi poured out a soul-stabilizing elixir from the jade bottle. As Su Yi expected, after entering this space, the level and aura of the soul-stabilizing elixir had increased by a lot. The soul-stabilizing elixir, which was originally a mid-moon grade elixir, seemed to have reached a high-moon grade elixir. The soul-stabilizing elixir was a valuable elixir for consolidating the soul essence realm. Such an elixir could not be afforded to the younger generation unless it was from a large sect or a first-rate force. Su Yi was very uneasy about breaking through from the third level of the soul essence realm to the sixth level of the soul essence realm. Therefore, Su Yi planned to take the soul-stabilizing elixir to consolidate his cultivation. This was much safer. Then, Su Yi sat cross-legged and took a soul-stabilizing elixir. There were a total of 3 soul-stabilizing elixirs, but Su Yi did not dare to take the risk of taking all 3 at once. As soon as the soul-stabilizing elixir entered his mouth, a sweet taste rushed into his mouth. Then, it flowed down his throat and turned into a cool energy in his body. It slowly flowed to his limbs and bones, then to his muscles and bones. Wherever the energy passed, it was as if the winter sun was shining, making Su Yi feel indescribably comfortable. The savage demon forest was vast. Because of the special geographical location, the savage beasts, medicinal herbs, primordial stone mines, etc., the savage demon forest had become a chaotic place. The Black Fiend sect was one of the absolute forces in the chaotic savage demon forest. However, recently, the Black Fiend sect had suffered a huge blow. They had been targeted time and time again and had suffered heavy losses. For a time, a storm had set off in the savage demon forest. I heard that the young master of the Black Fiend sect, Yohikami, was killed. What? Who is so bold? Does he not want to live anymore? When the news spread, the entire savage demon forest trembled as if an earthquake had occurred. It was as if a storm had been set off. Chapter 83. In the depths of the forest, demonic beasts roared. Many figures exuded a fierce aura, and the smell of blood filled the air. Seal off all areas and search for them. We must find that old man and young man. The one in the lead was an old man who looked to be in his 50s. His red hair reached his shoulders, but his eyes were a strange black color. A wide robe covered his skinny body, and it fluttered in the wind like a skirt. But at this moment, the old man's face was extremely gloomy, and his black eyes emitted a cold light. Whoosh, whoosh, a figure flew out from the depths of the forest. He was dressed in black, and only his eyes were exposed. He knelt on one knee in front of the thin old man and said, "Great elder, I found traces of that person. He's just ahead. Let's go." The red-haired old man's face was gloomy, and a cold light surged in his eyes. In the mysterious space, Su Yi withdrew his hand seal, and his aura gradually withdrew. A mouthful of turbid chi was exhaled from his throat. His eyes opened, and the light in them was dazzling. Then, they became reserved and deep. Feeling the changes in his body, Su Yi's eyes were filled with joy. After consuming a soul-stabilizing pill, he could clearly feel that his cultivation had solidified a lot. The Yuan Qi in his Dantian Sea of Yuan Qi was compressed even more. His aura was originally at the middle of the 6th level of Yuan Qi realm, but now was at the early stage of the 6th level. But the feeling of fullness was incomparable to before. Good pill. Su Yi was secretly shocked. This soul-stabilizing pill was really good. It seemed that his cultivation had regressed. But in reality, the feeling of being solid and heavy was incomparable to before. In terms of combat strength, Su Yi had a vague feeling that he was definitely stronger now. Stretching his back, Su Yi looked at everything in this mysterious space. The energy of heaven and earth was still abundant, and he didn't dare to casually consume the spiritual liquid. The herbs he planted seemed to have grown and were beginning to emit vitality. This mysterious space made Su Yi more and more surprised. The energy of heaven and earth was abundant, and it was helpful for cultivation. It could increase the level of pills and the spiritual liquid treasures. Everything was very mysterious. This also caused Su Yi to be even more certain that this mysterious ball of light had an enormous origin. It was a precious treasure, and he absolutely couldn't let others know about it. Calculating the time, Su Yi estimated that many days had passed. After tidying up, he put away the mysterious space and walked out of the crack. 2V Cool Craftsman Fornet. Forever and ever #free/look_little Sayar. He reckoned that since the Black Fiend sex people had not found this place, they should have already gone far away. Su Yi pondered. If he wanted to become an expert, he could only rely on himself. The barbaric demon forest was also a pretty good place to temper himself. The Sacred Mountain was one of the top 10 forces in the entire continent. Its mountain gates stretched for thousands of miles. Thousands of li of heaven and earth were filled with energy. Mountain ranges overlapped each other, and they were called sacred mountains by the world. The Holy Mountain was magnificent and incomparably sacred. It was the holy land and heaven for all cultivators. Holy Mountain at a certain peak. Mist rose from an ink-blue mountain peak, and the cyan peak looked like an ink painting of mountains and rivers. On top of the mountain peak, there was a graceful figure in a fiery red dress. She looked to be around 15 or 16 years old. Her skin was whiter than snow, and she was incomparably beautiful. He's dead. Is he really dead? The girl's brilliant and beautiful face was currently frowning. Her graceful body couldn't help but tremble slightly, and she looked dejected. Everything was an accident. Elder Wang didn't have time to save him. It was a girl around 17 or 18 years old. She wasn't old, but she had already reached the stage of a femme fatale. Her slender body, under the adornment of her tight-fitting, colorful clothes, exploded with a shocking and gentle curve. Her eyes were filled with a kind of invisible temptation. This girl was Lu Yani. She had followed Su Yi to the Sacred Mountain. She looked at the girl in red and slowly said, "But that guy is really a bit special. He was perfectly fine for 3 years in the barbaric demon forest, and he had the qualifications to do odd jobs. But when he challenged Ji Chao in Man City, both sides were injured, and he didn't lose." "Sister Yani, did you see him die with your own eyes?" The girl in red turned around and looked at Lu Yani. Her face was a bit pale. "I didn't, but it can't be fake." Elder Wang didn't have time to save him. A sparkling pearl belt was casually wrapped around her waist, making Lu Yani's waist look even more slender like a willow. The 2 strands of hair on her cheeks gently brushed against her face with the wind, adding to her seductive charm. Looking at the girl in red in front of her, Lu Yani seemed to be thinking about something. Then she softly said, "But that guy's really stubborn. He kept insisting on the marriage agreement. Unfortunately, maybe this is the will of the heavens. With your current position in the Sacred Mountain, that pervert probably won't have a good time when he gets there." Back then, although he was a bit perverted, but the girl in red mumbled to herself. A gentle breeze blew on the mountain peak, and her red dress clung tightly to her exquisite curves. Her youthful figure was also curvaceous, and she was incomparably alluring. In the future, she would be even more beautiful than Luyani. What? You can't be thinking about that pervert, right? Luyani smiled slightly. Why would I think about him? I just want to kill that pervert with my own hands. The girl in red raised her eyebrows and pouted her delicate red lips. She pretended to be calm, but at this moment, her heart faintly ached. Why did she feel so sad when she heard the news of that pervert's death? The deep valley on the side of the forest was already pitch black. Between the peaks of the valley, dark blue peaks overlapped. Through the dense, towering trees, stars began to twinkle in the boundless sky. On a smooth black rock, a young man in ragged clothes was gently leaning against a towering tree. The arc at the corner of his mouth revealed a complicated temperament, and there was a kind of evil in his tenacity. The young man was Sui. From the barbarian city to the barbarian demon forest, it had been almost a month. The 3 years in the barbarian demon forest had made Sui accustomed to this kind of lonely tempering. Continue to cultivate. Immediately, Sui stood up, and his eyes overflowed with light. After leaving the cliff, Sui carefully guarded against the people of the Black Fiend sect. He did not slack off and directly opened the 2 sets of martial skills he obtained from the Black Fiend sect's young master. One set was the 7 Enduring Fists, and the other set was the Scarlet Flame Palm. 7 Enduring Fists and Scarlet Flame Palm were both martial-level martial skills. Although they were not at the level of Fuyao's 100 Changing Steps, they were still martial-level martial skills. Fuyao's 100 Changing Steps, Overlord's Fist, 8 Desolation Fury. Sui was far from being able to use them to the extreme. Every time he used them, the consumption was huge. Sui estimated that with his current cultivation level, high-level martial skills were not suitable for him. A child using a broadsword would not be able to display the strength it should have. Low-level martial skills, if he was proficient in using them, might be more effective. Chapter 84. 7 Enduring Fists, Shui Grade Earth Attribute Primary Martial Skill, Close Combat Martial Skill, Tyrannical and Powerful. One punch contains 7 different forces. Some are hard, some are soft, 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 some are soft. Some are soft, 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 some are soft. Sui fell in a deep thought. He did not know where the young master of the Black Fury sect had obtained this fists of 7 damages. It seemed that he had never practiced it before. Perhaps this had something to do with the requirements to practice the fists of 7 damages. According to the cultivation information, the fists of 7 damages should not be practiced if one's inner force was not strong enough. Otherwise, it would destroy one's liver and lungs, causing one to go berserk and lose control. Sui gave it a try and discovered that he was able to cultivate it. However, it seemed that the power was not up to his expectations and was still a little shaky. Practice makes perfect, Sui muttered to himself. Standing before the tree trunk, he began to close his eyes. There was only silence in the surroundings and the occasional roar of savage beasts coming from the depths of the forest. At a certain moment, Sui's slightly closed eyes opened. His hand seals were condensed, and his fist was clenched tightly. A faint black yuan chi covered his fist as his fist slashed out. 7 Enduring Fists. Bang! Sui practiced martial arts. Practice makes perfect. He hoped that he could master it as soon as possible. What he lacked the most now was strength. For the next few days, Su-Yi shuttled through the barbarian demon forest while practicing the fists of 7 damages and the scarlet flame paw. Every time, he would cultivate to the point of exhaustion before stopping. Then, he would find a place to enter the mysterious space to meditate and recover. Su-Yi could clearly feel that his exhausted muscles and bones would greedily absorb energy to recover at the first instance when he was in a state of extreme exhaustion. This feeling gave Su-Yi a feeling that his bones, muscles, and cells were slowly strengthening, moving towards a process of transformation and strengthening. After a few days, Su-Yi began to feel a sense of confidence. With his current cultivation of the 6th level essence soul realm, coupled with the fists of 7 damages and the scarlet flame palm, if he were to face the young master of the Black Fury sect again, he would definitely not make a mistake. KP, Cliff Mountain Range. No matter who you are, you can't escape today. A cold shout resounded through the sky. Dozens of experts formed a circular formation and trapped a skinny old man on the mountain peak. If Su-Yi was here, he would definitely be able to recognize that this skinny old man was the one who had tricked him outside the mine. However, the skinny old man's face was pale. It seemed that his situation was not optimistic. Looking at the dozens of figures around him, especially the ones in front of him, the skinny old man's face was very solemn. Those people were all at the Origin Void Realm, especially the one in front, who was a red-haired old man in his 50s. The aura on his body was almost at the Origin Monarch realm. The skinny old man was speechless when he saw that the Black Fury sect had actually mobilized such a large formation. For the past few days, the Black Fury sect had sealed off the entire barbaric demon forest as if they would not rest until one of them was dead. Previously, he originally wanted to rob the Black Fury sect of their origin stones. However, he did not expect the Black Fury sect to be fully prepared. He did not succeed. It was not to the extent that the Black Fury sect would not rest until one of them was dead. Now, even the Grand Elder of the Black Fury sect had come. There were also a few Origin Void Realm cultivators from the Black Fury sect. This did not make sense. It was not until later that the skinny old man heard the news that the young master of the Black Fury sect was killed. It seemed to be related to the miners in the mine. His appearance made the people of the Black Fury sect believe that he was together with the kid who killed the young master of the Black Fury sect. It was no wonder that the Black Fury sect would not rest until one of them was dead. It was said that the Black Fury sect's sect master had a son at an old age, and it was even an only son. One could imagine how the Black Fury sect's sect master felt. Looking at the Black Fury sect's formation, the skinny old man pursed his lips and lightly bit the corner of his lips. His expression was solemn, and he did not explain anything. He was afraid that no matter how he explained, it would be useless. The Black Fury sect would not let him go. Take him down. The wide-robed, red-haired old man waved his hand, and a cold glint filled his eyes. He was the Black Fury sect's Grand Elder. When he mentioned the old Chi Xie, who in the entire barbaric demon forest did not know of him, boom! As soon as old ghost Chi Xia finished speaking, the 5 Origin Void Stage experts soared into the sky. Their auras soared as surging origin energy of various attributes surged, forming an awe-inspiring pressure that spread throughout the mountain peak. The storm of auras enveloped the entire sky. 5 Origin Void Realm cultivators attacked. 5 Origin Void Realm cultivators attacked and formed a circular attack that firmly trapped the skinny old man. Attack! A loud shout resounded, and the 5 people's vigorous origin chi instantly surged out from their bodies. The origin chi of various colors seemed to have materialized and intertwined with each other. In an instant, 5 attacks simultaneously enveloped the skinny old man from 5 different directions. Rumble! The instant the 5 attacks swept over, the skinny old man's hand seals condensed, and origin chi of the fire attribute surged out. In a barbaric state, he forcefully blasted away the 2 attacks in front of him. Stomp! Stomp! Although the skinny old man escaped from the attack of the 5 people, His body still staggered back, and his expression became more and more solemn. Seal the surroundings. I'll do it. The old Chi Xie looked at the skinny old man who was hastily retreating and coldly laughed. His body rose into the air, and his origin chi surged. In an instant, his figure appeared beside the skinny old man. Swish! The wide-robed, red-haired old man's skinny hand stretched out from his wide robe. His claw was like a ghost claw that flickered with origin chi. It seemed as if it wanted to tear through the air and made a whistling sound as it grabbed towards the skinny old man's neck. This kind of attack was as fast as lightning and fierce and vicious. The skinny old man's expression was extremely solemn. The ghost claw in his eyes was accompanied by a whistling sound as it rapidly enlarged and tore through the air. At this moment, the skinny old man's expression was grave. He gritted his teeth, and his hand seals quietly condensed. It seemed as if he had used some kind of secret technique. His face instantly turned as pale as ash, but the aura on his body instantly rose to a new level. Boom! A terrifying aura erupted. The aura around the skinny old man's body seemed to have caused a storm. Come! The skinny old man shouted in a deep voice. The storm-like aura around him suddenly turned sluggish. Subsequently, his hands clasped together and transformed into a large energy palm that was dozens of feet in size. It extended from his hands and tore through the sky. With a terrifying speed, it directly collided with the former's claw. The energy palm and the claw both tore through the air. Under the shocked gazes of the surrounding dozens of people, they shockingly collided and suddenly exploded. Bang, bang, bang. A palm and a claw shockingly collided. At this moment, a muffled, thunder-like sound resounded over the mountain peak, and the surrounding mountains collapsed, and the ground cracked. Chapter 85. After packing up, Su Yi continued on his journey. Su Yi's goal was to pass through the barbarian demon forest and head to the chaos region. Ever since he walked out from the cliff, Su Yi had been pondering. He wanted to become an expert, but he didn't know where to go. In the current world, there were 1 mountain, 2 churches, 3 sects for groups, and 10 major powers. 1 mountain was the Holy Mountain. The 2 churches, 3 sects, and 4 groups were the other 9 major powers. It was rumored that these 10 major powers were the peak of the current world. They were the heavens and holy lands for cultivators. Su Yi was extremely disappointed with the Holy Mountain. Thus, Su Yi didn't have much of a good impression of the remaining 2 churches, 3 sects, and 4 groups. It was likely that those monasteries were the same. It looked like they were rotten on the inside. Perhaps in those monasteries, the strong were revered and the weak were prey to the strong. Su Yi had thought that if he could enter one of the 2 churches, 3 sects, and 4 groups, if he could obtain the guidance of their great teachers, he might be able to quickly become an expert. However, Su Yi smiled bitterly. The Holy Mountain tested him as a servant. It was likely that the same would apply to the 2 churches, 3 sects, and 4 groups. In any place, strength was respected. In the 2 churches, 3 sects, and 4 groups, with his talent, he might not be valued. As for the mysterious ball of light and the origin supreme technique, he definitely couldn't expose them. The Holy Mountain had an elder like Wang Chuanda. There would definitely be many of them in the 2 churches, 3 sects, and 4 groups. The Chaos region was the same as the barbarian demon forest. They were both special existences. According to Su Yi's knowledge, there were 6 continents, 3 continents, and 1 ocean. There were 1 mountain, 2 churches, 3 sects, and 4 groups, and 10 major powers. Apart from that, there was the barbarian demon forest and the chaos region. They were 2 special places. In comparison, the barbarian demon forest was extremely large. Although it had some resources, it was much more lacking compared to the 6 continents, 3 continents, and 1 ocean. Furthermore, the barbarian demon forest was located in a remote location. Thus, it gradually formed the current situation. Even if some of the 10 major powers wanted to get their hands on the barbarian demon forest, they were too far away. The chaos region was the same as the barbarian demon forest. It was a special place outside the 6 continents, 3 continents, and 1 ocean. Strictly speaking, the Chaos region was even more peculiar than the barbaric demon forest. The Chaos region was extremely large, almost as large as the 6 continents, 3 continents, and 1 ocean. However, for some unknown reason, no one from the 1 mountain, 2 religions, 3 sects, and 4 groups dared to lay a finger on the Chaos region. It was independent of the 6 continents, 3 continents, and 1 ocean, as well as the 1 mountain, 2 religions, 3 sects, and 4 groups. Sui had long heard that although the Chaos region was chaotic, it was even more chaotic than the barbarian demon forest. However, it was different from the barbaric demon forest. Not only was the Chaos region chaotic, it was also filled with endless danger. It was rumored that the Chaos region was a dog-eat-dog place. It was a dog-eat-dog world where the strong preyed on the weak. There was no reason to speak of. In addition, the Chaos region was also a paradise for rogue cultivators. Rogue cultivator was the name given to those who did not belong to any sect or those who were so small that they had never even heard of the name of their sect. The disciples of the 1 mountain, 2 religions, 3 sects, and 4 factions were quite wary of them in the Chaos region. This was because the Chaos region had a natural resistance against the disciples of the 1 mountain, 2 religions, 3 sects, and 4 factions. If there were disciples of the 1 mountain, 2 religions, 3 sects, and 4 factions in the Chaos region, they would disappear without a trace. Even their bones would not be found. Because the Chaos region was filled with rogue cultivators, even if they killed the disciples of the 1 mountain, 2 religions, 3 sects, and 4 factions, they would not be able to find out anything. Moreover, even if they found out anything, as long as they were in the Chaos region, the disciples of the 1 mountain, 2 religions, 3 sects, and 4 factions would not be able to do anything. Sui had pondered for a long time. If he wanted to become an expert, perhaps it would be better to go to the Chaos region. Although the Chaos region was more cruel, it would allow him to become an expert faster. Heroes were born in chaos, and heroes were born in troubled times. Sui understood this principle in his previous life. With his primordial supreme art, his identity as a soul controller, and a mysterious space inside the mysterious light sphere, Sui was confident that he would be able to grow stronger in the Chaos realm. There would be a day when he would become an expert. Even if Wang Chuanda knew that he was still alive, he wouldn't dare to do anything to him. Moreover, after killing the young sect master of the Black Fiend sect, Sui was not stupid enough to continue staying in the barbarian demon forest. It was better to leave as soon as possible. The Chaos region was located in the Endless Sky Sea region, and it was connected to the 6 continents, 3 continents, and 1 sea. However, it was also because of this that the Chaos region was a special place. However, to reach the Chaos region, one had to pass through the barbarian demon forest. Sui knew the general direction of the Chaos region, so he had been heading there for the past few days. Perhaps it would be more suitable for him to develop in the Chaos region. During these days, Sui had chosen the most remote route to avoid encountering people from the Black Fiend sect. However, he would occasionally encounter some small mercenary groups and exploration groups. Although he had been in the barbarian demon forest for 3 years, he had only been at the edge of the forest and had not gone deep. However, due to his experience, Sui had avoided those mercenary groups and adventurer teams from afar. In a place like the barbarian demon forest, as long as one did not have enough strength, one's life would be in danger. Killing and seizing treasures, this sort of thing was simply as common as eating rice in the barbaric demon forest. In the barbarian demon forest, it was inevitable that one would encounter some demonic beasts. Sui knew where to go, but he would also encounter some savage beasts. Fortunately, the level of these savage beasts was not high, and the aura of the Origin Supreme technique seemed to have some sort of restraining effect on these savage beasts. Therefore, Sui did not encounter any obstacles along the way. On the other hand, when the savage beasts felt the aura released by Sui, they immediately avoided him. As he walked, Sui practiced the fists of 7 injuries and the Scarlet Flame Palm. He became more and more familiar with the fists of 7 injuries and the scarlet flame palm. Although he was still a little shaky, he was getting the hang of it. Another day had passed. At dusk, when he raised his head and looked at the place where the sun had set, there was a faint red hue left. He appeared at a river that meandered through the mountains and deep forests. He raised his head and looked at the dusk. It was as if a golden crescent moon had fallen from the sky. From time to time, the roars of savage beasts could be heard from the depths of the mountains. After a martial cultivator reached the foundation establishment stage, they would cultivate the energy of heaven and earth into origin chi. Thus, they would not need to eat much. The higher one's cultivation, the less they would need to eat. However, with Su Yi's current cultivation, not eating for 10 days or half a month was not a problem. However, he would still need to drink some water. The surroundings of the river were empty. The yellow sunset was like a scarlet leaf falling onto the golden river. Under the setting sun, the mountains turned dark purple. He drank a few mouthfuls of water by the river and washed his body. In the space bag of the Black Fiend sect's young master, there was not even a change of clothes. These days, he had been wearing those ragged clothes that barely covered his body. Go. $. Chapter 86. Looking at his disheveled reflection in the river, Yi bitterly smiled to himself. At this moment, he looked like a savage. However, Yi was already used to it. Back then, when he was in the barbarian demon forest for 3 years, he lived a lot like this. Compared to now, it was much better. At least, he didn't need to be afraid of ordinary savage beasts. After washing up, Yi planned to find a secluded and safe place to cultivate at night. Suddenly, he looked at a certain spot by the river and his gaze froze. At this moment, Yi's gaze was fixed on that spot. At this moment, there was a figure lying on the shore. He didn't know if he was dead or alive. That figure gave Yi a faint sense of familiarity. Yi hesitated for a moment, then carefully went forward to check it out. That figure's entire body was wet, as if he was soaked in water and washed up on the shore. His hair was wet and messy, covering his head. His robe was somewhat tattered and had traces of blood, as if he was seriously injured. It was unknown if that person was dead or alive. Half of his body was soaked in the river, and the other half was washed up on the shore, lying on the sand and gravel. Yi sized him up for a while and felt a sense of familiarity. Then, he lifted his leg and gently flipped the figure over. This person's wet hair covered half of his pale face. However, when he saw this pale face, Yi's gaze suddenly trembled. He subconsciously took a step back and looked at him with vigilance. It's him. Yi's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. No wonder he felt a sense of familiarity. This was none other than the skinny old man who had tricked him back then. Haha. It's true that the nets of heaven grind slowly but surely. It's not that the time hasn't come yet. When the time comes, it will naturally come. Yi laughed, looking at the old man's appearance. It really was true that the nets of heaven grind slowly but surely. Is he dead? After carefully sizing him up, Yi carefully went forward to check the skinny old man's condition. He discovered that the skinny old man was already dead. However, there was still a faint trace of heat on his body, as if he had just died. Retribution. Yi sighed. Although he swore in his heart that the next time he had the chance to see this skinny old man, if he was strong enough, he would definitely turn this old man into ashes. However, since the old man was already dead, Yi had no intention of defiling his corpse. After all, the dead had to be respected. Now that they were dead, their grudges would naturally be resolved. There's a space bag. Yi naturally wouldn't miss out on such a good opportunity. He immediately searched the skinny old man's body. Although the skinny old man was dead, his body was still warm and soft. Yi found 3 interspatial bags and put them away with satisfaction. He considered them as the old man's compensation for his loss. Could it be that it's swollen? Suddenly, Yi was a little puzzled. He wanted to continue searching to see if he had missed anything, but he discovered that the skinny old man's body was abnormally soft, especially his chest It was as if it was swollen. However, when he pinched it, it felt quite good, as if there was a kind of elasticity. It feels quite good. So he couldn't help but pinch the old man's chest a few times. Could it be that he's hiding something? Feeling the strange sensation on his chest, Sue-Yi was secretly suspicious. Immediately, he used both hands to pull off the thin old man's robe in no time at all. In any case, the skinny old man owed him a debt, so there was no disrespect to the dead. When the robe was pulled down, the skinny old man's upper body was exposed. His skin was the complete opposite of his face and neck. It was as white as snow and as smooth as jade. His waist was so small that it was hard to hold it in one hand. The clothes on his chest were tightly wrapped around the curves that were supposed to be exposed. Sue-Yi's eyes couldn't help but immediately freeze and become dumbfounded. A woman, no, a transmigrator from Thailand. With Sue-Yi's experience in his previous life, he immediately understood that this was actually a woman. However, when he thought about it carefully, this face was clearly that of a man. Could it be that there were also transmigrators in this world? Sue-Yi pondered and carefully sized up the old man. Suddenly, Sue-Yi seemed to have seen something special. It seemed that because he was soaked in water, the skinny old man's face was a little swollen and peeling. There were small areas that revealed his white, jade-like skin. LC head FEF, swish. As he rubbed the old man's face, Sue-Yi was immediately shocked. As he rubbed the old man's face, his white, jade-like skin was revealed. Appearance-changing technique. Sue-Yi was dumbfounded. He continued to rub the old man's face a few times. Suddenly, a beautiful face as white as jade appeared in front of him. This face was that of a woman in her 20s. Her face was smooth, her lips were like cherry blossoms, and her eyebrows were like ink paintings. Her spirit was like autumn waters, and there was an indescribable charm and delicacy. Although it was unknown whether it was because of her heavy injuries or because she had been soaked in water for too long, this woman's face, although white, was deathly pale. However, under her wet hair, it was especially eye-catching and fresh. It was like rain hitting a green lotus, and the mist was thin. It was indescribably ethereal and elegant. This kind of face was too beautiful. It made Sue-Yi tremble as he looked at it. Moreover, this woman's upper body was almost completely exposed in front of his eyes. F***CK, this is a woman. Sue-Yi was unable to remain calm. He never would have thought that the wretched old man who had tricked him was actually a woman. Moreover, she was a very young and beautiful woman. It's a pity she's dead. Sue-Yi sighed inwardly. Such a beautiful woman. If her true appearance was revealed, she would have been a femme fatale. Unfortunately, she was dead. It was a pity. Her body is still warm. Although she's not breathing, perhaps she's drowning. She can still be saved. Suddenly, Sue-Yi seemed to have thought of something. Perhaps this woman could still be saved. He had also learned some first aid knowledge in his previous life. Although this woman had tricked him once, saving a life was better than building a 7-floor pagoda. Moreover, it was such a beautiful woman. Sue-Yi did not hesitate much. In any case, with this woman's current condition, even if she was saved, she should not be able to do anything to him. Immediately moving, Sue-Yi began first aid. Calming his mind, he picked up the woman's slim waist and poured water on her head. Then, he immediately performed artificial respiration. However, in the depths of Sue-Yi's heart, he could not help but think that it was a good thing this was a woman. If it was really the thin old man, he would not be able to perform artificial respiration even if he was beaten to death. However, at this moment, Sue-Yi was focused on saving people. He did not have any other thoughts. Lifting the woman's delicate white chin, Sue-Yi pinched her jade-like nose and took a deep breath. Then he slowly blew into her small mouth. Occasionally, he would release her nostrils and use his hand to press on her chest to help her recover her breathing. This cycle was regular and persistent. During this process, Sue-Yi also surged some yuan qi, hoping that the effect would be better. At this moment, Sue-Yi was completely focused on saving people. However, he did not notice that the beautiful woman had unknowingly opened her closed eyes. At this moment, for this woman, It was the most unforgettable day of her life. After being severely injured, she fainted. She did not know what happened when she suddenly woke up. She saw a man's hands pressing on her chest. This was also her first kiss. But now, this man was like a pervert, using his hands and mouth on her in an incomparably vulgar manner. The woman was stunned. She had never experienced such a situation before. She was immediately stunned. "Pervert, I'm going to kill you." Then, with a strength that came from nowhere, the woman shouted. She raised her hand and fiercely slapped Su Yi's body. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.